Saturday, I believe it was, at a private retirement function for them. But those folks, Brian Lynch, high school social studies teacher, 1988 to 2022. Karen McCarthy, high school health and physical education, I think is online tonight, 1987 to 2022. And Jodelle Thomas, our high school librarian, from 1997 to 2022. When I speak of those three high school educators, I use the word icons. When I came to the district 9 years ago, those are names that stood out then and stand out now. So on behalf of all of us, past boards, past superintendents and administrators, we congratulate the three of them on their retirements. So let's give them a round of applause. The next two gentlemen I'll invite up. Can Mr. Ron Long and Mr. Jeff Remington join me? Ron, 2011 custodian, and Jeff, 1987. So Jeff, should I tell you in 1987 what grade I was in? No, come on up here. I had the pleasure of meeting Ron first as a parent. I was the principal, not his, but of his daughter's. Yeah. And what I remember, and this just goes to a credit of Ron as a person and as a parent, one of the best students I've ever seen in my life as a leader at Andover High School when I was principal. Megan was a fantastic student, succeeding in life as a teacher, I believe, at Cedar Crest. We won't hold that against her. But a credit to you, Ron, as the type of individual that, just knowing you as a dad, a young lady you raised, but now having the opportunity over the last 9 years that I've been here to see you as an employee, the pride you took in your work each and every day. The middle school was yours. Custodians work hard, and there are a few that stand out that are part of a building culture. And Ron, you're one of those people. So we congratulate you, and you're here all summer, correct? So you're doing the hard work. Summer's, I think, the hardest on me. And you're here to fight through that before retirement. So on behalf of the board and administration, congratulations. Up here, Mr. Stemmington, as the kids call him. Jeff actually retired in January after the first semester, I think it was.
Yeah.
But didn't retire. He's already transitioned. He lived part-time over the last few months at the State College during the work week, took on a job at University Park, working at Penn State in STEM, but basically doing ambassadorship work, continuing to work with schools through Penn State University to bring more STEM to schools across the Commonwealth. Jeff is a pioneer in this work, helped Palmyra, I think, lead the way and pave the roadway for STEM in our middle school. Our new program you created, I remember that conversation. We had a vision, some administrators shaking their heads, and all we needed to do was get the right people on the bus and stay out of their way. And that one person at the middle school was you. And you created a state award-winning program. So for years before that, the service you gave to kids, thousands of students have crossed through your classroom. And on behalf of all superintendents, administrators, and past boards on this board, thank you. You did a great job.
I don't really have any president's reports to report this time, so we'll kind of go right into visitor comments. Before we go into visitor comments, just want to again remind everybody, be respectful both from the board and people that may say things. Name calling.
Speak up. Speak up.
What I'm going to say is just be respectful in the comments. Name calling is not going to do any good. It's not going to get anybody's message across from the board to citizens, from the citizens here. If we're trying to get a message and we're trying to work collectively together, name calling isn't going to do it. Okay? So that's all I'm asking. Not throw anybody out. You'll notice there's no police here. There's no nothing. We're supposed to act like civilized adults. Let's act like it. That's all I'm asking. So with that, I believe the first one up is Mrs. Hurley. And Get the 5 minutes ready. And one last thing. I know before we kind of let everybody make their comments on the board, I will pause it in between if you'd like to, interact. Not that I want a question and answer session. We're not going to do that. But given the gravity of obviously tonight and some concerns within the board, within the community and stuff like that, I'm okay with some dialogue. If the dialogue's going to change to, bashing or whatever, I'm shutting it down. Okay. So again, the willingness to work, the willingness to try to help, to see both sides and everything, I'm all for. I just want to, again, remind everybody of that. So, okay. Ms. Hurley, whenever you're ready, I'll start the time.
Ready.
Go ahead.
And I plan to take my entire 5 minutes because I do like a microphone and I'll talk loud. First off, I want to introduce myself for those of you that I don't know. I do know what to do in here. My name is Candace Hurley. I'm a parent first here in the district. I have 3 children that are still, I have 2 children that are still attending and one that just graduated. I am active with the school district in volunteering and then also with substitute teaching. I've gone to a lot of different events in and around, and I feel qualified to speak on a couple of these items. First, I want to express my gratitude to the board. I have been truly impressed with the I don't want to say bipartisanship because it's not a party, but I want to say that I am very thankful for the work that is being done collectively to make this and keep it, not make it, but keep this the best community. I'm so happy to be here. So thank you for that. That's to the school board. To the administrators in the room and the teachers, I also want to thank all of you, to everyone who's listening. I have been in the classrooms, I have been in the hallways, I have been on the kindergarten buses, and I love it. And I will tell you that the kids are happy, they are well adjusted, and they are learning. And this is a tribute to everyone that is on the PASD team. I want to thank all the board members, even those who ran on a platform for no taxes. I want to thank all of you for doing what you were voted in to do, right? To look at all of the facts, to see that the budget needs to be increased, and then with the budget increase to see that we have a need for some kind of increased revenue to pay for the budget. So thank you for doing that. I didn't have any doubt. Some of you I know in my neighborhood and personally, and so I didn't have any doubt that that would take place. But that being said, I do condemn the mailing that came out from the PAC. I see that Alicia's not here. I'll talk to her personally. Mandy, Kayla. I am hoping that at some point, this never happened last time, but I'm hoping at some point that the board will collectively together stand up and say that this is not right. It's not. It doesn't happen in other districts. It doesn't happen in Texas, and they have lots of guns there. It doesn't happen in a lot of places, and it shouldn't be happening here. The PAC is now currently attacking 3 of the board members that they helped get onto the board. And nobody should be okay with that. Nobody should be okay with that. But moving on to positive stuff, I'm also here to thank my friend Missy Patrick. I think she's being recognized next week. And then also Shelley Regal. You guys are losing some very great PTO presidents. And I'm sure that Miss Bauer and Miss Kensington, I think are the ones that are taking over, are gonna step up and do great things. And I think it's great that these women are also moving up to the next level or wherever they're going to be. Maybe they're just going to take time to be a mom for a while, who knows? But they have done some great things, and I just can't say how proud I am to be part of the team and in their background. Last, keeping children and community values at the forefront of every decision should be really what everybody in here strives to do, not just here, but online. In our small community, that is what keeps us going. We have a strong value system. We have a strong camaraderie. We have a strong little town that continues to amaze me. I've been here 7 years. I'm a transplant. I have moved a lot of different places because I've been in the military. And I will tell you that this town is amazing. And it's because everybody gives their time. They listen to each other. They talk to each other, and we do need to continue to be kind. We need to keep that going. The kids need to see that, because otherwise they're not going to do it when they grow up, because I see that too. The last thing is, I'm hoping I get approved to substitute again this year. We'll be putting my application in, because hashtag, I want to say hashtag, I get to work here. And hashtag, I love that my kids go to school here.
Thank you, Mrs. Hood. Does anybody have anything they want to?
Can I?
Yeah, by
Okay.
all means, Karen.
I had already something planned to say, so I'm gonna piggyback off of what Mrs. Hurley said. This is just me personally, I don't speak for anybody else here. I typed this up, so just bear with me. I would like to make it known that that flyer that you mentioned floating around, I think is absolutely disgusting. I was not aware of it. I learned about it at the same time everybody else learned about it. I would never, nor have I ever approved my photo to be used to bash other members on this board. We all have difference of opinions, views, input, but I respect every single person sitting in this room, here and in the audience, and I would never, ever condone such an act. There are far better things that time and money should be spent on. All it has done is cause further division in an already divided community, and all it has done is put stress on an already stressful situation. To say it is upsetting is the least. Whether you know me personally or you don't, it is not my character, and I would never approve such a thing. Going forward, I hope things like that are not circulated again. But again, I cannot guarantee that. I had no part of it. I was not aware of it. To see it come home in the mail disgusted me. I threw it away before my child sees it laying on the counter where the mail gets dropped. And to kind of piggyback off of that, I just want everybody to know that I literally have been a ball of nerves. I have not slept in days. Tonight's meeting has caused me a great deal of stress. I'm not taking my decision lightly to vote either way, but it is serious. Like, I am borderline being harassed and intimidated to vote a specific way, and it is disgusting. I did not sign up to be a puppet. I did not sign up to be told what to do. I am a grown woman. I can make my own decisions. I enjoy being on the board. I really think I'm impressed at how well we have come together, and I apologize for going off on my rant, but I'm freaking mad about that flyer. So, I mean, I enjoy seeing the emails. I enjoy, like, my favorite part is when Dr. Kepler talks about, Palmyra Pride and all that stuff. That is my favorite part of sitting here. I had to say my piece. So sorry for rambling, and that's where
No problem, Taylor, your rant's still.
I had it all
Sorry, never be
typed
as
up,
long
and
as
I
mine,
just felt like that was
you're
the
good.
perfect time to.
Does anybody, Alicia's on the phone?
Yeah, I just wanted to point that
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
that Ms. Haldeman is on the phone. This meeting was scheduled for last Thursday. She had a scheduled vacation. When the meeting was moved, she didn't have a choice, so we just thank her for phoning in during her vacation.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Kepler. I should have made mention of that. Does Alicia have anything she wanted to say for Candace's thing, or?
Alicia, did you have anything to add?
In regards to what was just said?
No, if you wanted to comment, we're kind of giving everybody just the special nature of if there's anything you want to comment, if you're fine, we'll move on to the next speaker.
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
John, if you will.
Yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
I'm not as prepared as Kayla, but just so everyone knows, I also had nothing to do with the flyer that went out, nor did I agree with it, nor did I approve it. I considered writing something up as she did, but I dismissed it because I decided that it wasn't even worth my time to sit down and give it the time of day. So, but just so that everyone is aware as well, I echo a lot of the sentiments that Kayla said, is that I had nothing to do with that, and I very much appreciate the board and the way that we have come together and attempt to work well with each other and with the community. So, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Mary.
I'd like to thank Mrs. Hurley for her service to the district and also for your message of kindness. I think that's super important. We continue to spread no matter where it is within the district, and thank you for doing that here tonight.
If nobody else has anything, Mr. Clee, I believe you're next.
Thank you. The capacity to keep a straight face when not being straight with others is quite a thespian skill. Some have it, others don't, and some don't even seem to try. All this brings to mind C.S. Lewis, a man who could profoundly recognize the truth of things. In the Screwtape Letters preface, C.S. Lewis shared the following insight, quote, "I live in the managerial age, in the world of admin. The greatest evil is not now done in those sordid dens of crime that Dickens loved to paint. It is not done even in concentration camps and labor camps. In those we see its final result, but it is conceived and ordered, moved, seconded, carried, and minuted in clean, carpeted, warmed, and well-lighted offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voices. Hence, naturally enough, my symbol for hell is something like the bureaucracy of a police state or the office of a thoroughly nasty business concern," unquote. For those who profess to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, should C.S. Lewis's 20th century assessment of the world of admin be revisited as to the here and now? I listened to Board President Jones on May 26 share how certain individuals had not taken him up on his offer to register for that particular board meeting and thereafter participate in the PASD world of admin. I was disappointed that on May 26, board directors Jones and Guide seemed to have disparaged those individuals who, in my estimation, had simply exercised common sense as it related to speaking before the board. After all, everybody knows, I believe, what can comprise a quote-unquote rigged game. Could it be there are PASD topics, sacred cows, so to speak, that one or more PASD officials have absolutely no interest in allowing to be better understood by the public, better understood by means of open topic Q&A type events and the comprehensive posting of district document and event details for public access? To my recollection, on May 26th, it was acknowledged that the PASD Capital Reserve Fund is quite low. If so, that begs a number of questions. One being, has there been fund losses since the year 2000? If the PASD Capital Reserve Fund has indeed decreased here in the 21st century, has a growth in public school employee pension costs played any role in it? Surely, one or more of the 9 of you should know something about 21st century public school employee pension costs and the current status of the PASD Capital Reserve Fund. But now, speaking of 2022-2023 PASD school funding and budgeting issues, to date, how much time and effort has the PASD invested into assessing the implications of the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court case, William Penn School District et al., the Pennsylvania Department of Education et al.? Here in June of 2022, the PASD board is going to do what it is going to do about the 2022-2023 PASD budget. At this moment in time, they have the authority. Remember what was said on the campaign trails of 2021 and what is now being forced upon us. But for those who indeed have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, please note that 2022 is a time to begin regaining authority over both your children's education and your own money. To help find this starting point, please read a July 12, 2017 Commonwealth Foundation paper by James Paul titled Policy Memo, Education Savings Accounts, Myths and Facts. It's time to sort out not only how to properly educate children in a fiscally responsible manner, but how to not corrupt them along the way with the evil of Marxist, neo-Marxist lies about, among other things, equity. Could any ongoing PASD admin plans to advance a diversity, equity, and inclusion sacred cow be a driving force behind Board President Jones's push for such a large 2022-2023 property tax increase? After all, here in 2022, has the public received any transparency from the board about how diversity, equity, and inclusion may or shall balloon the PASD budget over the next 5 years? Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Anybody?
I don't know if it's worth the effort. I mean, I've listened to you for 10 months. You've attacked the assistant superintendent. You attacked the food services. You've attacked our honesty. You've called us communists. I think you're really upset about 4 years ago when you came to a board meeting for months on end and eventually told us that you wanted creation science taught in the science classes. And we told you, well, creation science, it's not science, it's a history, it's a philosophy. We teach it there. I mean, whose creation stories are we going to teach? We're going to teach the Hindus, the American Indians, are we going to teach the Judeo-Christian? But it's not science. And I think you've been upset since then. Again, I have problems when I listen to your comments on book control. And, you know, I think, what are you asking for? Book burnings? I think your comments are racist.
Oh, come
Hold,
on.
hold, hey,
Okay.
hold.
Okay. No, let me rephrase
No,
that.
but let me just talk to you about that.
Yeah.
So, everybody calm down, okay? Calm down. I'm just gonna tell you, right? We talked about it at the beginning,
Yeah,
right?
and
I know you already knew, but I'm just, okay, so.
your comments create a feeling of racism. I'm not accusing you of being racist. I'm simply saying your comments seem to be racist.
I would
So
caution
I'm
you,
just
let's
gonna leave it
the
at that.
bicycle.
Yeah, I'm done.
So, sorry, Mr. Gower, I just wanna make sure we're there. Mr. Clay, I actually will speak to some of what you said. You kind of alluded to the fact that we're gonna do what I gotta be careful. Mr. Adams knows me from construction, so he knows my mouth sometimes, but, I'm deeply, deeply offended by what you just tried to say. That I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do because I've got the power. On December 16th, one of my first board meetings, 106 people attended that meeting via Zoom. January 13th, 132 people. Then all of a sudden we get to February and we start going to 26. Do we know what the topic was during December and January? It was mass. It was COVID. More people cared about those two things than they care about what's going on right now. Now, I'm not trying to say that that's what it is, but I'm telling you, the numbers tell me that. That's what they tell me. I have a professional job. I don't get paid to sit here. I have offered numerous amounts of times. One of the first people I've reached out to was somebody who ran against me, who literally said, and we not that we bash each other, but we were of very different opinions. And Mrs. Patrick can probably tell you later, her husband was the first person I reached out to. He accepted my invitation for breakfast, and I've met with him numerous amounts of times. Mrs. Yaw, I don't know if she's here this evening, but offered invitation to meet with her for breakfast. I've told anybody, my number's there, I've returned a phone call, I've tried to do this, I've talked with Mrs. Beverly, her and I don't see the eye on a lot of things on something, but we've had the conversation, and I've taken the time out of my schedule to be here, to be present, and even beyond this room, to interact. Tonight I'm sitting here and there's 28 people on Zoom. This room is filled with, I'm going to be honest, lackluster. I was an idiot. I wasted the administration's time tonight. I wasted our custodial staff's time tonight to prepare this room to have an honest dialogue. Where is everybody? Behind a computer screen on Facebook? That's something I tell my son not to do. That's something I tell my daughter, don't pay attention to. Somebody will call you a name. It's going to happen. I can't fix that, honey. I can't fix that somebody's going to call you a name. America is sitting here standing here, listening to people tell me exactly that I'm not a good guy, whatever, and dealing it with them in a decorum. It's not sitting behind a computer screen calling me names. I'm not saying that you did it, but in reference to your thing, right? You know, you talk about that, well, there's maybe some sacred cows or whatever. Dr. Kepler can answer this question, and Mr. French, have we talked about, based off the last meeting, and I brought this up at breakfast, I haven't had time to get there, but in the month of August, I'm asking that the administration prepare themselves to make themselves available for 2 hours, a Saturday in August. I told Mrs. Yaw, please talk to the group that she's associated with and bring some areas that we think cuts should be made. Give me those right up front so I can ask the administration to prepare their thing, and let's have the Q&A. Let's have it. And then we'll have it again in September. We'll have it again in October. Let's talk about the budget all year. But let's talk about the budget honestly, not just because I don't want to spend the money. This isn't something that I'm trying to do something or whatever that I'm not going to pay the price for. It affects me just as much as it affects you guys. Right? My side hustle is officiating. My side hustle is that. I'm going to have to do more of that so I can keep my finances in line with how I want to do that. That's a personal choice for me. If I don't want to take the cuts there, I've got to work harder. That's the same thing I instill in my children. If you want something, you need to go earn it. And if something else comes along the way that's going to challenge that or affect that, you can whine and moan about it all you want, but you know what? You have the power to change it. You can change jobs, you can change locations. This to my children, I'm not telling this to the community, but that, okay? And we can laugh about that, but that's your freedom. Your freedom is that. The freedom isn't I get to sit in one spot and everybody else has to accommodate to me. That's our freedoms start and end where others begin. And I think on both sides, that is where everybody continues to lose the battle. So again, my comment to you, Mr. Cleve, you've got my phone number. I've shared it with you. You still haven't called me. I'm more than willing to sit down with you. I will find time in my schedule to give you honest time. Honest time of a honest dialogue. But don't just come. If we're both going to come preoccupied, I'm honest. I have no problem voting no to this tax increase. If somebody can tell me how we fix the fact that you brought up that there's no capital funding. Because you know why? Because every place that the board's been asked, the administration's asked this board, not this one, but every school board prior to this, Dr. Kepler said it in May 26th, they've asked for more money every year. And every year this board comes back and says, nope, not enough. We don't have it. We're going to cut it. Where's the first place they go to cut it? In capital, in buildings. The reason we don't have it is because administration board as a whole has never funded it on an annual basis. They funded it just like we do in the pool thing. Got $500,000 over here, move it over to here now. This to this. My proposal was we need to start funding the capital reserves account correctly. That's it. That's why I asked for a bigger increase, because my whole thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Prince and Dr. Kepler, but my understanding is that the increase over 2.83, I was telling you, needs to be automatically to the capital reserves. It is not to go anywhere else, but to go there.
That's correct.
I'm trying to fix it. If it doesn't pass tonight, you want to know what? So be it. I will support whatever comes out of this room tonight. Whether I'm in favor of it or not. That's how a board works. That's how a board of directors works. That's how the world should work. You get to say your piece. We come collectively. If we don't agree, we don't agree. But it doesn't mean I have to hate you. I don't think any of what you said was racist. I think you're passionate about what you got. I've got no problem with what you've said. Other than the fact that you think that I'm not going to listen to you, whatever. My last plea again, you have my phone number. You have my email address. I've told everybody, I made it public at the last board meeting that I would be at Funk's at 7 a.m. that Friday for breakfast. I made it public. 2 people showed up. I don't know much more to do.
In those engagements, it really is not public, it's not official, and it's not on the record. What I've been asking you all people, okay, that's why I haven't engaged Ms. Bagnola and I haven't engaged Ms. Fisher, okay, because to engage them behind closed doors or wherever, then it boils down to he said, she said. They can say whatever they want to say about whatever we say.
Absolutely.
I say, and we can say whatever we want to say about whatever they said. But you know what? It's not public. It's not record. So the PASD doesn't have to act or respond or honor anything that is said in the engagement.
You're actually very correct, but I don't have to act or honor on anything I say today right now public. Hold on. I don't have to act or honor on anything I say publicly, right? That's the thing there. But the problem is, though, is that's the same baloney that I hear when people say that, like I talked with Mr. Frentz earlier tonight, when people say that taxpayer money wasn't used to fund the Turk project. They're lying. Taxpayer money was used to fund that project. Absolutely, 100%. But to sit here and say, well, it's behind closed doors and I'm going to play in it, then I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't accept that out of my child. And Mr. Geib and I have had many conversations where honestly we've sat there and he accused me of some things, I accused him of some things. And my direct question to him was, would you have accepted that out of your students when you were teaching? And he said no. I said, would I accept the way I acted out of my kids? He said, and I said no. So just because that's a thing doesn't so you stop? The sheer fact that you're worried about that you're going to have a meeting with Dr. Spagnuolo, you're going to have a meeting with Dr. Kepler, and you think that, ask Mandy, I've told everybody. I told Mr. Koval this morning. If I don't trust them, somebody make a motion to fire him. I mean, point blank, right? I mean, it boils down to if you don't trust them, then call that. But to sit here and say that because I'm afraid that in a meeting you're not going to be true to whatever, then stop coming, right? I mean, if that's truly your thought, then why waste your 5 minutes? Why waste your time? That logic makes no sense to me. If you want it in a public forum, if you want permission to record me in that forum so you can use it against me because you think I'm whatever, then by all means, bring me the paper, I'll sign it. I got no problems with that. But to sit here, this is the last, and then we'll move on, because again, I go on way too rants. But to sit here and say that you're not going to work on it outside of this room because you're worried about that somebody's not going to honor their word, it goes both ways, right? But that's that. So we've had enough on that public comment. I'm going to move on.
One more.
One last one, sure.
Okay, here. I think courts of law recognize the lower value of hearsay. I think that's recognized, and that's what I'm saying, is that once you get down to hearsay, then there's a degradation of whatever the topic is. Would you acknowledge that?
What I'm telling you though is you're trying to hold me to a standard. I've only been on this board for 6 months. You have not worked it with me. You can't sit here today and say, no, your paper doesn't mean anything. You have not tried to meet with me outside of this room and work on a solution. Is that correct?
Correct.
So at this point, your accusations against me, hold on, stop. Your accusations against me of that I won't honor talking with you and that I won't work with you are false because you haven't tried. I get you may have tried with other boards, but again, you're blaming me for somebody else. And in this world, we don't blame other people for that's baloney. So again, my offer to you is the same thing. I get why you may not want to work with Mr. Geib. I understand because you know, not in a personal way, but You may have tried with him and you maybe feel different, but you have not done it with me. I don't know if you've done it with Mr. Koval. I don't know if you've done it with Mrs. Lieberher. I don't know if you've done it with Christine. Don't even know if you've done it with Miss Brady. I don't know if you've done it, Christine. I don't know. But to sit here and lump us all into the same thing of that you're not going to work with any of those people because if you're worried about hearsay, I'm just going to tell you, you got to keep trying. So, okay.
He never tried to work.
I guess, okay. On to the next person. Sorry, I'm gonna be long-winded tonight already, I can tell. Mrs. Haldeman.
Hi, my name's Ann Haldeman. I've lived in the district for many, many, many years now. I was a prior board member and I am not related to the current board member. So let's get that straight.
We wouldn't hold that against you.
Well, I just have a few things that I pulled offline today, and that is that the Palmyra Area School District spends $17,229 per student, and that the state median is $15,665. I think we're well above the state median. The difference is $1,564 per student. And if you multiply that times the number of students, you're at just a tad under $5.5 million. And I think that that's a significant number. And I think that that also leads into what are we dealing with this budget and why are we calling for the increase that we are. Now, the next thing is that I know that a lot of the budget is salaries and benefits. You know, I also was able to pull off that Pennsylvania teachers' pay ranks in the highest in the nation as far as comparable pay, meaning that when you compare the pay of the teachers to the pay of the general public, it is 30% more. And that is significant. I think that's very significant. So those two statistics, you know, if you want to dispute them, they were official documents. Now, 6 of you were elected to control costs and not raise taxes. I just need to emphasize that. And I think that that's important, especially in light of these statistics that I just gave you. Now, administration will tell you that it's better to raise taxes on small increments every year. I have been there. I heard the same thing time and time again. Raise taxes, that there's a benefit to that. My question is, who does that benefit? Certainly not the taxpayer. I look back over the taxes that, and I think Larry would also agree with that, you know, because again, remember, Larry's part of the system. You know, he was big in the union and he's going to support that forever. You know, it's a mindset that you don't get away from. Yeah. I look back at my personal taxes over the last 4 years, and from 2018 to 2019, my taxes went up $118.19. Again, just a small $100. The next year, it went up $61.32. The next year, $135.04. And this year, if you get this 3.5% that you're asking for, it will go up $121.18. Now, over 4 years, that was an increase of $435.73, or a total of 13.2% increases if I added up what the increases were per year. But if I added up what it was from the total, it comes closer to 14%. So I'm saying that $435 is not a small increment for the people in this community. I mean, they're fighting with inflation, they're fighting with things that are out of control, and it seems to be no stop in the end. And then you're asking them to pay $435 or me more over a 4-year period. And this doesn't stop. I mean, this is every year. It's going to be $435 plus whatever you raise it next year. Because if you're not looking at this stuff now, I don't have any confidence that you're going to look at it again in the future. But it is significant. It is significant. And I am offended for anyone to say it's only $100. Well, that is for my gas tank almost. Also, as I looked at the budget, a few things caught my eye because I was able to pull it off offline, so there's not a lot of detail there. there's not a lot of detail at all. But one thing that caught my eye was a line item 800, which appeared under every subtopic. And that was called,
30 seconds.
oh, other objects. I'm not sure what that means unless it's just another term for slush fund. The other thing that I noticed was the increase in legal fees by 18.5%, board services 16%, books and supplies for the office of the superintendent and the assistant of $6,100. That's a lot of reading in 1 year. I could go on, but I think you're getting the gist. And I'm asking you to honor your campaign promises. And if you're not able to do that, then step aside and allow someone to do it that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I'm gonna say to that, for me, and then I'll let whatever is, there's 3 campaign promises. Not one was no taxes. First one was children back to school safely with masks. Next one was fiscally responsible. As I said at the last board meeting, being fiscally responsible. We didn't approve a teacher contract, so I'm stuck with what I got. So
You're stuck with what
but
you
hold on,
have.
hold on. Let me finish though.
You
Let me
have
finish
to
and I'll let
know
you.
that.
Let me finish.
Just
I'll
like
let you.
we're stuck with what we have at home.
What I'm trying to tell you is the 435 still hits me. I didn't approve the TERP. I'm opposed to the TERP, but it doesn't mean I still don't have to pay for it. It still doesn't mean that I don't have to maintain it. The teacher contract, I wasn't here for. Okay? If I'm here, which I don't plan to be because you guys are negotiating after 4 years, right? So I won't be here.
I understand.
But no, but hold on though, but you're making a lot of accusations. And as I'm back to you, like I said, 132 people showed up in December, 106 showed up in January. The big thing, right? I mean, again, I'm listening to it, I'm sensitive to it, I pay the same amount, right? It's back and forth. I've heard way more in favor than I have not in favor. I've heard way more than whatever. And again, all I'm asking you is, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one. That's it. I don't hate you, I don't whatever. But that's it, plain and simple. It's what happens in everyday life. We agree to disagree. That's it. But to sit here and name bash for all day long, I mean, I guarantee, I'm not saying you are. But
I stated facts, and you know what, you said you were going to be fiscally responsible. You're saying you were not responsible for the turf, and you were not responsible for the salaries, the contract, but you are responsible this year for piling on.
You are right, because you want to know what? Because what's going to happen is in 10 years, there's a bill coming due. There's a bill coming due to replace it, and that's the problem. So do you propose we kick it down the road until the next board?
I propose that you look at other expenses and make cuts where you can.
Absolutely, which is why I've offered in August and September and October to do that. The time to talk about the budget and fix the budget is in those months, not here. That's it. I mean, you've given me no other thing other than Mr. Frantz. What is account 800 that she brings up?
It is other objects. Mostly what's in there is dues and fees to professional organizations. That's PSBA membership. Those types of things are in there as they don't fit in any other category.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's not half the states were dropping that.
Okay. Anybody else, anything? All right.
Neither I nor any of the people that were running with me that I ever heard say no taxes. It was we would be financially responsible. And coming onto the board and finding out all the things that have to be done on this school district that have not been taken care of. We have a pool that's going to cost $1.5 million to fix. There's equipment here in the auditorium that needs to be replaced. Buck Stadium needs to be fixed. These are things that have not been taken care of over the years.
Have you looked at other options other than raising taxes? I know there was a significant increase in the sports budget, and I think just that one line item was $50,000. You know, when it comes to sports.
But the problem is you're not cutting $2.5 million out of the budget. That's what you got to do. In order to do it, what you got to do is you've got to cut the 1.2 million in the deficit, and then you have to cut over that. You're not finding $2.5 million. There's not. That's the problem.
Well, I
You
understand
think
that.
you cut the 1.2 and it solves the problem. The 1.2 does what every board in this county or in this city's done. They've made the cuts, and where they made the cuts is the capital reserve. They've made the cuts in the capital reserve. They made the cuts in the capital reserve. When they need to take money away from everything else, they cut to the capital reserve, and that's where it leaves you with 100 grand. So again, Mrs. Fisher's right. We'll stay all on whatever. I appreciate it. I would look for you, encouraged to meet with you in August and September. I'm all ears about other things of slush. I've asked them to bring me the things, send me an email on those. I will directly send them. I know that, Mrs. Martin has some questions. I have her thing that I sent earlier that I've got the handout for you on the answers that they've given to me for that I've got no problems with that. We'll move on to the next person if nobody's got anything else. Ms. Mazur?
Said to Jill, I'm almost afraid to speak. Okay, there's been a lot of discussion about the pool and the needed repairs. Mr. Jones asked if someone could reach out to the swim team to see if there's any way they can pay for some of the repairs. I ran the snack bar for the team for close to 9 years. I can tell you that the money just isn't there. I asked Coach Cynthia, who paid for the new scoreboard, and she said, we bought all of everything. Have fundraisers, someone said. Let me ask you this, if you raise taxes, gas is up, food is up, the cost of everything is up. Where exactly are the parents or anyone else going to get the money to donate to the pool repairs? Several school board members asked if we need the pool. And I believe it was Miss Gilligan that commented with, I went to Northern Lebanon, we didn't have a pool, and I think we turned out okay. Do we really need the pool? As someone whose daughter spent almost 11 years in the pool, I have a few questions. Do we need a football stadium? To be honest, I hate football. I've never been to a game at Bucks Length, so my sentiments for the football field are the same as yours for the swimming pool. Next question, do we need turf fields? Mr. Jones mentioned that they may need to be replaced in 10, maybe 15 years. How was that funded? And if it was donors that funded it, are they also going to fund the replacement of the field? Next question, do we need a drama club? They're asking for $500,000 for upgrading the lighting and sound systems. There is not one club or sport that is more important than the others. Mr. Jones mentioned the Ridge Road fields and the leasing of that property. Is it possible to hold those tournaments on the turf fields and get rid of leasing that property? I have no idea. It's just a thought for saving money. That's why I'm asking. The tax increase. It's only an extra $100 is what I keep hearing from some of you. In fact, Mr. Guy even said at one meeting, in his travels around town, he sees all these new big houses and there's no way people can't afford an extra $100 a year. Not everyone in Palmyra lives like that. And just because they have a large house in a development doesn't mean they have money to spare. I ask you to think about the senior citizens who are on fixed income or practically no income. My mom never had a job where she had a retirement plan. She worked at the sewing factory and then did party plan at night just to keep food on the table. She only gets Social Security and she's 83, so she now only is able to do sewing in her home for her income. She takes a loan out to pay her taxes every year so that she can pay some of it each month. Let the issue with her health get to the point where she could have died on Memorial Day because she didn't have the money to pay for the doctor visit or medicine and kept telling me that the issue was getting better so that I wouldn't make her go to the doctor. Sorry. She also had a major plumbing issue in her house, which may have contributed to her health issue, and she left it go because she doesn't have the money to pay for that. My siblings and I paid the bill along with her doctor bills, so now I don't have an extra $100 either. A raise in taxes could mean that my mom won't be able to keep her house, and I'm sure she's not the only senior citizen in Palmyra that is facing that. And before you suggest it, nope, she's not willing to sell it at this point, despite my encouragement. And who's gonna buy a 100-year-old house that needs work, especially with the interest rates going up? I ask you to find some ways to cut costs in the school district, like all of us at home have had to do this last year. Don't forget, there was a 4% raise in taxes last year, and a lot of people didn't get a raise in income. Some even lost their jobs. Some cost saving suggestions, just because you said nobody's bringing suggestions. Does each student really need an iPad? How about paper and pencil? Do they still work?
Yep.
I heard Mrs. Spagnolo mention iPads and Apple pencils for the teachers. Geez, maybe we should go back to overheads and markers like we used to have instead of funding all those electronics. I think the school district needs to face reality. We aren't Hershey with a bunch of money coming in from Milton Hershey School, Herco, and Hershey Park, and we shouldn't pretend that we can keep up with them. Thank you for listening tonight, and I want to thank Alicia and Mandy for standing up for the seniors last month when they said they were not in favor of an increase. And I think, Mr. Guy, I didn't bring any conspiracy theories for you this night.
That you're not a racist.
My only comment would be, I agree with you on the thing, but if you're okay with cutting the pool, I'm okay with cutting the football team. I'm okay with cutting the wrestling team. I'm okay with cutting the lacrosse team. Because that's what the reality is. You're right, we're not Hershey, but I look in all the schools in Lebanon County and I don't necessarily see them all at the pool. That's not saying I want to cut the pool, but that's where we're at. As far as the comment to papers and pencils, we're in a generation now where everything is done electronically. I mean, I've got guys in the field that are trying to figure out, we've gone from paper coordinating in construction now to everything's done digital. I mean, and that's a huge curve. So now the proposition, if I heard it correctly, is to eliminate iPads and the digital resources that kids will need to be functioning in our society. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean with that, but is that what you're saying? Is that's an adequate thing that you would be okay with?
Why do they need the iPads?
I just told you, because even a skilled trade has now transitioned from paper to digital. They have transitioned from, if they come out of high school and they don't know how to use an iPad or how to use a computer, how do they function? How do they go to college? I mean, that's my honest question. I'm not trying to be mean with that, but that's my honest question. If they have to go back, I'm with you. My kids don't even know how to write cursive. I laugh at them. They don't even know how to sign their name. But every one of them tells me, Dad, it don't matter anymore. I can do it on this on an iPad. That's it. And they're right. I go to sign documents on a contract. I don't know the last time I've signed a paper contract. It's digital. So I'm with you, but like I said, Mr. Guy eloquated it perfectly. You want the zero, you want the stop, the sports go away, every extracurricular, the pool. I know the pool's near and dear to your heart, and I am agreed with you. You're going to ask the swim team to try to come up with $500,000. They're not going to find it. But part of the problem why we're at where we're at today is every board prior to this didn't account for the capital improvements that were going to be needed. They didn't. They should have saw exactly what I'm talking about with the turf. We have a pool. Somebody should have identified. I mean, I don't mean to be mean to you, Dr. Tepler or Mr. French, you weren't here, but somebody should have saw. And I hope after we fix this, I would love the administration to bring us what is the recurring cost so that we don't find ourselves in this pool problem ever again. What do we need to allocate every year annually? If it's 10 grand, if it's 5 grand, if it's whatever, so that this pool never gets to the point we are. Because we're doing $500,000, but just so you know, we just found out this week, the heater failed, done, gone. So the $500,000 we're gonna do isn't enough already, and now we gotta take emergency action to fix. Where's the money come from? I mean, I'm with you, I want to cut, I do want to cut, I do think we need to hone ourselves in, but the biggest problem that I've said from day one is, from my perspective of reviewing this budget, we haven't allocated money correctly in the correct spot. That's what I'm trying to do with this fix. That's all I'm trying to do. Next year, Mr. Prince can tell you different. I told you, be prepared on where I'm at. I told him where I'm at, because in my mind, I've now put $250,000 to take care of capital reserve. I'm with you, Mr. Monster. Again, I'll go down the road you want to go. I think the paper and pencil, again, if we can justify in the curriculum discussion that that's not going to hurt our children 5 years from now when they graduate.
Can I address that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when I was in school, it's been 40 years, but we had a computer class.
Yep.
And they had a certain number of computers, and each kid went through a computer class.
Yep.
In high school.
Yep. Can I ask a question though? When you were in school,
Why
did
wouldn't
they?
they be able to do that?
Yeah, well, my question is when you were in school, did they have Facebook?
No.
Did kids and community interact socially? Right? I'm just telling you, we've had a whole generational thing. To say the things that we did in school, when we all attended school, are just as fine, I don't know that that's a good argument, because the world has changed. There's plenty of people in this, in different aspects of things that can tell you that their professions do things differently because of the technology age.
My job changed 100 times since I've had it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is so I don't want to put our kids at a holdback to go paper pencil.
But if they have iPads in a class and they use them in an iPad class or computer class or whatever you want to call it, why does each
Dr.
student
Kepler?
need one iPad?
I would answer your question with a definite yes. Thank goodness when the pandemic hit, our middle school students had one-to-one iPads. Our high school students had laptops, or we would have been in a world of trouble and behind like many districts were. We were able to scrounge, at that time, I think we had 15 iPads per elementary classroom. We were able to scrounge used old iPads so that every student was able to keep one. In today's educational world, those items are a tool for learning. They don't do everything on them, but they're an asset and a tool that teachers use as part of their craft. We would be, because of the pandemic, other schools have caught up through stimulus monies. I'm concerned for those that in 4 years, what are they going to do if their budgets aren't poised for that? We were fortunate that we had that as part of our plan and budgeted for as we were in the years leading up to the pandemic. Technology is a tool in our classrooms that we won't function without.
Okay, moving on. Mrs. Patrick.
Hello, I'm Missy Patrick. I'm an alumni here at Mr. Remington, 7th grade. Mr. Guy, I'm in 9th and 10th. My husband and I are both from here. My husband recently ran and was on the board. As Josh said, he has met with him several times for breakfast. I think you guys see eye to eye on a lot of things, so really I'm just here to support of the tax increase, support the board. Kayla, I appreciate what you said earlier tonight. I know how the harassment can be because I've been on that side. And I think that's what people don't understand is the harassment that goes on with the PAC. And that's really like what was behind a lot of us running, because the PAC shouldn't be involved. It's nice to see 9 contributing members of the school board instead of 3 or 4 doing the work and putting in the effort. Mr. Jones, I appreciate you asking the questions and finding out the answers and seeing for yourself that there isn't much to cut. We're pretty frugal, fiscally responsible as we can be. Mr. Koval, I read your response to in the correspondence to someone, I don't know who the person was, but in the correspondence, you said it perfectly. I mean, you're fiscally responsible. There's a 1.2 or 2 deficit, and you take the time to go back and look at that and what he said and wrote back. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Mr. Jones keeps saying it. Bring us something, tell you something to cut. You guys have been sitting up there looking at it. I mean, I just don't know how else you could do it but a tax increase. And so I just want to say that I support you. And then my husband actually was supposed to be here speaking, but he's out of town, so he won't be, so you can skip over him, but he obviously goes along with my sentiment. He's met with Larry, he's talked to Mike, he's talked to you, Josh, so you guys all know how he feels. So thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Mark?
Good evening. We have been told repeatedly that the district will be run like a business. Personally, I don't know any business which can repeatedly go to the bank for additional funds without a serious evaluation of its expenses and expected or projected revenues. I am not opposed to tax increases necessarily. Perhaps they are needed to dig us out of the hole. An increase should be a last resort, however, and not the first. So many in our community are on fixed incomes. Our family has a special needs son, and we have to live on one income. We also have college expenses coming up. My husband has not had a raise in several years, not even a cost of living increase. So this year we have made several cuts to our expenses. I know everyone's expenses are going up, including the district's. I am simply asking the district to do something similar as to what my family and many others have been forced to do on a personal level. I do not want any programs or the education of the students to suffer. Of course, we all want to give our children the best possible education. But in the end, we can only give them what we can afford. The same is true for all of us on a personal level. School is no different. An important part of the budget process is to re-examine priorities each year. That has not been happening. I am merely asking for the board and administration to do a deep dive into all the expenses and the revenues to see where some of the fat may be trimmed. I am disappointed that this due diligence has not been done yet. We have also heard repeatedly that our costs per child are already low. Surrounding districts are paying more, we are losing educators, etc. These things may well be true, but instead of making broad statements about our position versus other Lebanon County districts, let's look at real numbers for each district, like the last 5 years of spending per child, average household income, average test scores, population of each school district. With this kind of data, we can then have apples to apples comparisons and not just generalized statements that we are losing out to other districts. Let's do the same with revenue. Have we really made realistic estimates of the revenue the school district can expect? The administration's revenue projections don't seem to match with current trends in state funding. For example, the Commonwealth Foundation released a report in June, which highlighted current increased funding trends. The 2021-22 budget included a $500 million increase in public school funding. The projected state budget surplus this year, earmarked for education or the likely outcome of the William Penn School District versus PDE case, should also be considered. I do not see the board taking a comprehensive look at all of the projected revenue or expenditures. In closing, to do the hard work I am referencing tonight, we need to look at our priorities and our values. That's how it will be decided what is important to our district as we move forward. I really am concerned for our community and our leadership. It's not just about tax increases or the lack thereof. Where do our values of our leaders truly lie? Do we really care for and want what is best for all students and our entire community? My concern for our values was reinforced at my oldest son's graduation last week. A quote was printed in the program and mentioned by one of the speakers. Let me read it for you. The coward doesn't start. The weak die along the way, and only the strong survive. As I thought about it, I kept coming to the conclusion that this quote is saying that the weak are of no account and have no hope or future. They just die along the way. But as a Christian and someone who loves Jesus more than anything in this life, I follow a different credo. One that reads, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." In the context of this school, I would paraphrase, blessed are the bullied, blessed are the disabled, blessed are those with mental health challenges, blessed are the poor and the homeless, blessed are the immigrants and those who don't speak English as their first language. Blessed are those with no political influence. They should all matter, and they should all have a future in our school and in our community. One of the best ways to tell how these individuals matter is how we approach the budget. Let me just put forward a different challenge for this board and our community to reach higher. And all you do, seek excellence, set ambitious goals, strive and work hard, value honor, integrity, generosity, and kindness over money, influence, and power. And don't forget the weak. Let's do better. Please consider the interests of our entire community, even those who may be weak. The senior citizens on a fixed income, those who are less blessed financially than probably every single one of us in this room tonight. Do the hard work, have respectful dialogue, stop the mocking, listen more than you speak. Don't take the easy way out. You owe it to the community that voted for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Martin, if you want, these are the answers to the questions that you had. I'll have Mr. Friends. He specifically answered the ones that you'd asked, because I agree with you. My only comment to you on the business thing, like I told you, from a business, I can't take projections that aren't true. What my proposal was, is I have to go with what is live hard data. So the live hard data is the state budget isn't finalized. I don't know what it is. I'm more than willing to, like I said, next year, whatever, but I can't zero out funding now in hopes that all that money will come in, because business-wise, projection-wise, if it doesn't come in, I now put us in a hole. It's not a matter of whatever, I put us in a hole. That if it doesn't come where it's supposed to, there, I'm with you. So.
Well, I'll speak briefly. I really appreciate the comments. And I listened to every word of everybody's comments.
Thank
And
you. I can tell that based on your face.
I do.
I appreciate that.
I listen to everybody. I listen to every word. And I've used the term agonized before because I have agonized over this budget. But I also know the hand we've been dealt, and I know the time that we've been given. But I certainly agree with the deep dive. That was one of my intentions before I was elected. I think everybody knows that, December, January, we were certainly preoccupied. Those were very busy months. And even if we had those months, we still only had 4 months or so to get a preliminary budget together. I guess the point I'm trying to make is I do agree with the line item deep dive. And I think most everybody on this board would. As far as the increased funding trends, I would agree with you in as much as probably 2022, but I've also read projections for beyond 2022 where the state revenue is expected to drop off dramatically. So I don't see those increased funding trends continuing beyond perhaps this year. I would love to see a whole lot more state funding. Palmyra Area School District and many other suburban and rural school districts suffer, and we suffer tremendously in the areas of state and federal funding. We just don't get the funding from bigger government that other school districts do. And that hurts.
Yeah, it is. Right.
But I would caution expecting those increased funding trends to continue, especially for rural and suburban districts. I wish the state had their budget done before we had to submit ours. That would put my mind at ease that we were getting those state dollars. Crickets, that's what I'm hearing, except for the $120 million the administration suggested we send to Philadelphia. If we got that $120 million Harrisburg wants to send to Philly, we could operate for 2 full years. That's 2 years. Philadelphia will blow through that 10 minutes. So I know everybody is probably, not everybody, but half the community, I would assume or expect is not happy. And one of the things I said in my response that you can find in the correspondence, and I suggest everybody read it, because I pretty much laid out my sentiments in 3 pages that are posted publicly online. It's, well, I don't want to believe. I wish we could do more. I wish the state would do more, and I wish the state and federal governments would move. Because
That's probably one thing we could all agree on.
that would help us. And I don't want to sit up here and just go on and on and on. My response to some particular questions are posted online for everybody to read. I stand by it all. And I also stand by what I said during my campaign, which was fiscal responsibility. And you know, I did a town hall, and it was rather unpleasant because I was getting pushed into saying zero, and I can't. I just can't. As an honest, decent person, I cannot make that promise. I would be a fool to. And I stand by that today. But I did promise fiscal responsibility, and I stand by that promise. And when the opportunity comes to do the deep dive and to look at things, I can assure you that we will. I'm the one that suggested or kind of floated the idea of the pool. That was me. Those are, I mean, and Mr. Jones said it, we can't cut our way to $2.5 million. We just can't do it. I wish that we could. And what we're putting away out of this budget into the capital funds reserves is minuscule. It's barely helpful. Lebanon School District just pulled $33 million out of their capital reserves. 33 million they pulled out. You got another 20 million from higher government, and they're spending $50-some million cash on a new middle school. You know what we could do if we had $30-some million? And that still left them with 6. So there's funding disparities. And I would say that the problem is in Harrisburg, not up here. And I truly wish things were different. And I'm going to wrap up my comments by saying I fully expect when I leave here tonight that the social media bashing and untruths and infantile, irresponsible BS is going to start. And I really wish that people would poison the well. And I pray it doesn't happen, but I fully expect it's going to. But as far as tonight's concerned, you know, I do appreciate the respect that everybody has shown. And be assured, I do listen.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Yep.
Anybody else? Mr. Arms?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Imes, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I thank everyone in this room for their continued efforts in making Palmyra Area School District the best school district it can be. I have 2 kids in elementary school, and we chose to live in this school district due to the exceptional educational experience the district provides. I consider myself fiscally responsible. For years, I would have told you tax increases were not appropriate. However, upon participating in and further educating myself during the 2021 school district budget conversations, I see the facts show that reasonable tax increases are necessary. Through my recent research, I was surprised to see, not in a good way, the financial statistics of our school district compared to those across the state. Palmyra is near the bottom statewide for student spending. By no means am I saying we should exponentially raise taxes to raise our per student cost, but I share this information to provide perspective. It was this perspective that made me realize the proposed tax increase is necessary, in line, and some may even say not enough, to allow Palmyra to continue maintaining the great educational experience our community has come to know and benefit from. I'm asking that we fully fund the budget and, moving forward, budget capital projects accordingly for future needs. These expenses need to be budgeted not on an as-needed basis, or worse yet, kick the can down the road mentality. I've seen too often in my professional career how when operating budgets and capital projects are not properly budgeted and planned for the first time, how they typically end up costing more in the long run. I support anyone's effort in getting the school's finances from being reactive to proactive. To summarize, I do not enjoy paying taxes, especially increased taxes. However, no one in this room controls how Harrisburg decides to properly or improperly fund local school districts, so it falls on the people in this room to do the heavy and unfavorable lifting by raising local taxes. Please vote tonight to support our amazing school administration and teachers. by providing them with the necessary funds to provide our kids with the best education possible, and vote for the full proposed tax increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Nobody has anything? Mr. Matters.
While reading the board communication last evening, one email really stood out to me. Mrs. Scudder stated, "Our children's education is the most important legacy we can give them." Let that sink in. Their education is the most important legacy we can give them. Wow, that's profound. Years after Christmas toys are thrown out and the memories of our children's birthday parties have faded, they are left with their education. I can't recall the majority of the gifts I've been given throughout life, but I do recall Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Morris, Miss Curry, Mrs. Anderson, Sister Mary, yes, I went to Catholic school, and my all-time favorite teacher, Mrs. Ambrosia. These women gifted me with the knowledge and sparked a desire to learn that has stayed with me my entire life. Myself and the hundreds of children that they have taught are their legacy. My child is their legacy. My grandchildren will become their legacy. The knowledge they instilled in me will flow to each generation after me. What Palmyra Area School District teachers have done this past year did not end on June 9th. It will be felt for generations to come. Likewise, the decision you make tonight will be felt for years. As we all know, learning is not exclusive to the traditional classroom. We learn on the field, on the basketball court. We learn in the pool and on the stage. Students learn in shop class, at CTC, and during extracurricular activities. For many students, these programs and activities are more than just some way to keep busy. They are a lifeline that provides a sense of community. They provide life experiences and often teach responsibility. These types of educational experiences equally contribute to our legacy. I recently saw a statistics from paschoolworks.org that states that Palmyra spending per child is $491 out of 500 school districts. Let me say that again. Our spending per child in this state is $491 out of 500 school districts. That's another profound statement. Our children's education has become so devalued by this community that 490 school districts in this state spend more than we do. How is that even possible? I spoke to neighbors, I spoke to friends, and I spoke to teachers to get an insight into understanding of how we get away with spending so little. The reoccurring theme in their response is spending cuts. The elementary swimming program and a high school aquatics teacher, cut. Kindergarten students no longer have art or gym due to budget cuts. Field trips are now fully paid by the PTO and by parents. Lab fees for biology, chemistry, and accounting classes continue to increase. Camp Swatera was once free. Teachers are being forced to cover more and more of their classroom supplies while being paid offensively low wages by this district. They are being told not to use workbooks, to limit copying at the end of the school year due to running out of toner and paper. If this is the legacy of our community, I am deeply ashamed, and you should be too. Like many people in this room, I received this piece of political propaganda in the mail last week. And I can't use the term political propaganda without giving a shout out to Sister Marianne, who taught me the definition and encouraged us not to take such propaganda at face value. This mailing was clearly geared towards people who lack a deeper understanding of the budget process and the consequences of not raising taxes. Following Sister Marianne's advice to look deeper, I pulled the financial paperwork associated with the Palmyra First PAC, and 3 names stood out to me. The first is Paul J. Martino, a man who lives nowhere near us and whose life is going to be no way impacted by the decisions of the board. All right. Anyway, so tonight I ask this board, what will be your legacy? Will you vote for financial stability of the district? Will you vote to support our children? Will you vote for our community? Or will you vote to appease individuals who are attempting to use you as political puppets?
Thank you. Anybody have anything they want to say or comment on the vote? Moving on.
So that brings us to finance. And Dr. Kessler, did you have anything say or state before we?
Yeah, what typically we do is a motion, a second, and then there's a discussion at that time.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2022-23 Palmyra Area School District General Fund Budget in the amount of $60,702,566 with real estate tax mills of 16.852.
There's a motion on the table to approve the budget of the 2022-23 Palmyra Area School District General Fund Budget in the amount of $60,702,566 for the real estate tax mills of 16.852. Is there a second? Second by Mandy. Sorry, I was trying to see who had who. There's a second by Mandy. This time, any discussion, comments? Anybody want to make anything?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment or two, please. As of 3:16 this afternoon, I'd like to thank the public and community members who have reached out and emailed and shared their opinions and thoughts and beliefs on the tax issue. Just to share some rough data with you, I received 12 emails in support of the budget, and I received 3 emails against. So if I truly listen to my constituents and the public, I believe that we have a majority, a grand majority of support for the tax increase, and for that reason, that's the way I will vote.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I appreciate everybody coming and giving, expressing their concerns and their comments. We've been on the board for 6 months, and in that time, it's been a learning process. And you can't just go in and without knowing what the budget is and make cuts. It's going to take a little time. And the budget starts, as Mr. Jones had said, in September and October. That's where we start looking at the budget for the next year. That's where the people need to be concerned and look at, be involved in, so that, if you have questions, we can take care of it. To come into the meeting that when we're voting on the budget, it's done. It's not much that can be done at this point. So if you're really that concerned, make sure you come out to the meetings in September and October and talk about the budget and work with us to see what can be done. We want to take care of the children in this district. That's our priority, and we're doing the best we can. And I thank you.
Well, I'd like to take just a second. I'll make it shorter than the last one. And thank you, Mary Ann and the others that have spoken. I appreciate the comments. Right now, I kind of feel like we're in a boat that's taking on water. And we can get a bucket and we can bail and bail and bail and bail. And it may keep us afloat, but without fixing the hole in the boat, we're just going to continue to bail and bail and bail and probably sink. The way I see this budget is we're taking the first small step at fixing a much bigger problem. I am not in favor of raising anybody's taxes, which include my own. However, I recognize the need, looking at the numbers. And I would say the same thing that Mary Ann did, and that, you know, the budget process is a year long. And we do intend to look at it. And I would just ask anybody that thinks that this is a decision taken lightly or easy, to please reconsider. This is actually a very difficult decision to make. And it's not, you know, I've lost sleep over it. And I'm not happy about it, but I'm also not happy with the financial situation the school is in. And I'm not saying that anybody did anything horrible in the past, maybe a few things, but kicking the can down the road is not going to help anybody. I mean, we'll be looking at much larger increases in the very near future if we don't start addressing some significant problems now. So I appreciate everybody that did come out. Be assured that I listen to everybody and I read every email. I thank you for participating.
Yeah, I would just like to say I echo what Mr. Koval said, that this is not something that I don't think any of us take lightly. And we have spent a lot of time educating ourselves on things within the budget to try to come to the best decision possible. And I may have a slight difference of perspective when it comes to the way we are handling the planning, but rest assured that in my position on this board, I fully intend to be looking at those future planning things, the needs, the capital needs, whatever the staffing needs would be. These are things that need funded. And like Mr. Koval said, we have issues that are bigger than our district. And those are things that, you know, we cannot always affect. There are certain things that we can affect. And we are doing our best within the boundaries that we have. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming out and participating.
My only comment is I welcome everybody to come in August, September, and October. Please send, I don't think anybody can say if they've sent a question, I haven't tried to get it answered. That's the best I can do. Taking into account capital takes care of the future needs of special education, takes care of the future needs of ESL, takes care of the future needs of any of those, not just talking about athletic facilities. That's unfortunately the problem. I just don't see any other way than putting that mechanism in. And once the mechanism's in, I agree. The cap is set, but the mechanism was never set from the get-go. And as I said before, these problems that Mr. Koval has addressed, they're years ago. Yeah. Mrs. Monster, you made mention about the Ridge Road thing. I agree. I asked about that. I'm locked into a long-term contract with that. There's nothing I can do other than void a contract. At least if I was on the board, I don't know that I would have done it that way, but to Dr. Kepler's point, that's part of being a community member. It's part of that. That fully funds the Parks and Rec. That's revenue that could come in here. To other people's points, that we could bring that revenue here. But again, at what point do you look to take revenue away from social programs that benefit the weak, as you referred to, Mrs. Martin, that benefit those? I mean, those are in direct conflict of kind of the general statement of, well, they'll get the revenue from somebody else. And they're basically in direct conflict. I said it at the last one. This school district runs a lot of social programs for the community. But from a business perspective, bad idea.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea. But from a social community development program, how do you not? I referred to being a good Christian. That's what good Christians do, right? But there's a ton of revenue that comes out of there. So what we do is we split hairs over what we'll cut. We're okay with cutting this, but I'm not okay with cutting this. We're okay with doing this. We're okay with doing this. We're okay with it's never going to win. The best thing I can ask is, you're in this room right here, right now. I appreciate the dialogue that happened. I'd lie to you if I say I don't get on Facebook. All I'd say is encourage everybody to attend the meeting and encourage everybody to talk. But to get on and join the camaraderie of, to Mr. Koval's point, the bashing that's gonna happen. Then at that point, did any of us, to Mr. Twee's statement, really mean what we said here tonight? I heard each and every one of you. I'm with you. I want to cut. Please continue to send the emails. I'll ask the administration. I'm trying to break down the whole right to know request and the time or whatever. Sorry, Mr. Prince. I probably should have asked if I was okay to even give that, because that was, but I assumed that it was okay because I actually put it in a format that I'd be able to present that. So if you got a question, I'll try to get it answered, and I'll try to just get it to you so you don't have to submit a stupid request. Don't know how much more I can try to help. Ms. Fisher's gonna kill me if I can talk too long. I'm sorry.
Like I said before, I don't talk a lot. I listen, and I appreciate all of your passionate speeches that you've said. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it was past school board members' fault for voting on the tax increase. But I've said it before. I listen to everyone, and I like to be the voice of the people who do not have a voice. My kids went to Palmyra. They're graduated, they're going now. I don't have kids in the school district. Does that mean I don't care about our education? No, that's not at all. I want the best for what we can spend on our children, but I want it to be the most bang for the buck. I run my own business. I understand this should be, the school should be run like a business. But there's a lot of things that I have learned not being on this board that the public doesn't know. And it's a lot of information. So I just want to know, I understand the tax increase. I understand we need more money for the projects to make our kids better. But the increase of what we're projecting now, the 3.58, I think we can do better than that. I think that's a little extreme. So for all those people who don't have a voice, that's where I'm coming from tonight. So thank you everyone for coming.
Anybody have any other comments, questions, or concerns? That time we'll roll call vote.
Starting with you. Gilligan,
No.
Alderman,
No.
Jones,
Yes.
Koval,
Yes.
Lieberher,
Yes.
Braden,
No.
Cheney,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Guy.
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
6 yes and 3 no's, the motion carries.
And at this time, I have another motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution implementing homestead and farmstead exclusions for the 22-23 fiscal year of Palmyra Area School District as required under the Taxpayer Relief Act.
The motion on the table to approve the resolution implementing the homestead and farmstead exclusions for 2022-23 fiscal year of Palmyra Area School District as required under the Taxpayer Relief Act. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Guy. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Guy.
And the Curriculum Committee met on May 26th, 2022. We reviewed 2 teacher conferences that we will have a motion to approve later on. Dr. Spagnola reviewed the professional development presentation. We also had a review of the induction plan for new teachers. There was a question during public comment by Seth Kleinfelder. He asked about the required training for new teachers. And we adjourned at 7:59. And out of that, we have the following motion. Motion to approve the following conferences. Allison Williams to attend the Keystone Star Summit at Shippensburg University from July 25th, 2022 through July 29th, 2022 at a district cost of $192.88. And Alex Farrell to attend the ACDA-PA American Choral Directors Association of Pennsylvania Summer Conference at Messiah University from July 31st, 2022 through August 2nd, 2022 at a district cost of $200.
I have a motion to approve attendance to the conferences, as read by Mr. Guy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fisher. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
That closes my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Mrs. Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jones. So we have the Staffing and Administration Committee meeting minutes from May 26, 2022. At that meeting, we discussed PSBA voting delegates and the appointment of voting delegates for the 2022 delegate assembly in preparation of a motion this evening. We also discussed the 2022-2023 general operating budget. The board reviewed a proposal for school solicitor services for the 2022-2023 fiscal year from Stock and Leader Attorneys at Law in preparation for a motion this evening. And we had public comment from Mr. Kleinfelder regarding policies about public engagement and the public's ability to view contracts online. The meeting adjourned at 9:29 p.m. and the next meeting of the Staffing and Administration Committee is scheduled for this evening, Thursday, June 16th, after the Finance Committee meeting in the high school auditorium and via Zoom. So from that, we would have, I have a motion to approve Stock and Leader Attorneys at Law as solicitor for the Palmyra Area School District effective July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2023.
I have a motion to approve Stock and Leader Attorneys at Law as the solicitor for Palmyra Area School District effective July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sue. Any comments, questions, or concerns? The only question I have is, I thought we had discussed that they're going to take over all, if I'm correct. So would we need to redo the motion that they are for all, or is it just solicitor?
You're, as a board, if you're appointing them as solicitor, not reappointing any other counsel and giving the administration direction, solely work with Stock and Leader, that's enough direction.
Okay, I just want to make sure so that everybody understands that the intention is for that, because I don't mean to put word, tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought that we said to do that because it would be a cost-saving measure to have one attorney do everything. Is that the way everybody understood it? Is that what everybody was? Yes. Okay. So just want to, again, so that we're trying to be transparent of, we're trying to, one, to try to cut some costs and saving some communication between different attorneys and things like that. If there's no other comments, questions, or concern, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and then moving on, we have the approval of the consent agenda. So I have a motion to approve the Staffing and Administration Committee items as noted on the Staffing and Administration consent agenda.
Dr. Kepler, did you want to highlight any of them, or was there a second? Oh, sorry, I forgot. Motion to approve the consent agenda as shown on the screen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fisher.
Dr. Kepler, did you wish to highlight some items on the staffing administration consent agenda for us this evening?
Certainly, thank you. With us tonight, let's see, we're still here. Becky Hoover and Ashley Harrison, our current administrative team at Lingle Avenue Elementary. Becky being recommended to move into the vacated position that Dr. McAfee recently left. And after interview, Ashley being recommended to take over principalship at Lingle. The intent would then be to post for a new assistant principal at Lingle Avenue Elementary. So 2 well-deserved recommendations before you tonight. New hires for staff. As you can see, we're busy. This is a tip of the iceberg. We are bringing forward and continuing to interview, and I don't anticipate it to stop. So some good people we're excited to bring forward to you. There are 5 professional hires. Some internal transfers, staff who were with us and making some internal moves in item 3. Thank Jess Barnhart for her years of service in middle school ELA, and Amber Miller in autistic support at Pine Street Elementary. Both have resigning. Our aforementioned retirements, some transfers in our support staff that you'll see there, resignation of support staff, and then you'll see based on collective bargaining agreements, some midpoint adjustments for various support staff folks through promotion and or pay adjustments that are contract related. And you'll see there was a correction. Mary Steelman was listed as an assistant previously and was to be listed as the head middle school field hockey coach. You'll see our new recommendation for middle school field hockey there tonight. And for you tonight are also the comprehensive plan, special ed plan that you've seen through committee. And then also thank you at our last meeting, Mr. Jones and Mr. Koval agreed to represent this board with the PSBA voting delegates this coming fall.
The only comment I guess I would have on that, Dr. Kepler, is I know that there's been some community members that have questioned assistant principal at the elementary level. If anybody's on the Zoom or whoever that has questioned that, if you would reach out, Ms. Harrison, if you would at least come or talk or whatever, just to kind of help give that, either understanding, whatever. I'm not well versed in that, but just it's been a sentiment in the community of 1 or 2. I think if we can, just at least address that, right, so that everybody understands. Again, whether we agree, disagree, whatever, I would like some more information on that, given some of that. I don't know if anybody else would, or, but
I can speak briefly to that tonight, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, if you want to, but I would like Ms. Harrison to be involved in that after this or whatever, just again, and specifically with whoever, again, I'm not gonna try to, blast anybody. I mean, it's been a question that's been brought to my attention to try to, transparency. Mr. Cleet, again, not trying to do any hearsay. It's been asked of me. I'm trying to get the answers and narrow it down. So I'm all ears if you want to speak to it, but just for that.
Yeah, agreed. I'm happy to follow up with any stakeholder for further dialogue. When Lingle Avenue Elementary School opened, I obviously wasn't here, can't speak to that. But it's a very large elementary school that functions as a school within a school to a degree. Housing our kindergarten center, all kindergarten children in the entire district attend Lingle Avenue. That is approximately 260 to 280 5-year-olds. Coupled with that, 1st through 5th grade, 3 of every grade, like our other buildings. The best way I can describe it is the first principal left after 2 years and said, this is not a job for one person. Wasn't convinced. We hired a new principal. In 2 years left and said, this is not a job for one person. 2 highly respected educators that are still here in the mid-state serving in the field. We hired Mrs. Hoover, our 3rd principal, alone. I don't know if she was there a year or 2, serving in that capacity alone, and said, this is too big of a job for one person. And I believe it was in 2018 that the decision was made to add the assistant principal position, just based on those needs. we believe strongly that that is a two administrative team to manage that building and run it, and still struggle to find instructional leadership time.
And since we moved into, we've also added intensive special education classes that work out their needs. So not only are we the largest elementary school in the district, housing all of our kindergarten center, but we've also added intensive support for kindergarten and first grade and two autistic support classes that are housed in that building to take a great deal of support from administration as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, like I said, I'm not either side, it's just been a question asked and trying to, bring what's there and let the chips fall where they fall. Other than that, that's the only question I had.
I'd like to make a comment. I'm delighted to see the transfers, not only with the administrative staff, but also our professional staff. I think it's important for us to be able to develop our staff and our administration, and I'm delighted to see that these phenomenal women, along with the others, are able to continue to develop and move forward within the district.
Yeah, I would agree. Hearing no other comments, questions, concern, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. With that, board communications, they're on there again. Thank you for everybody that did send an email. Appreciate it. Please continue to send the emails. By all means, if you've got a question that you want answered and you're really not want to go through a long process of right to know, as long as I can get it answered for you and just forward to the email, I will. Please send it to me. Thank you again for all those attending. And at this time, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Christine, second by Kayla. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Give it about 5 minutes.
Recording stopped.
Yeah, that's 5 minutes. Yeah, there is. Okay, we're gonna kind of try to get on track here. First one's gonna be building and grounds. Mr. Koval, take it away.
Yeah, and there's a couple items on tonight's agenda, capital projects and maintenance plan, which Mr. Jones had referenced a couple times. We're trying to find out what we need long-term. There's a full update, and that'll be followed by the public comment. And I will turn it over to, I'm assuming Dr. Tepper, but he may want to have Mr. Drescher speak to on the maintenance plan full update.
Actually, I think Mr. Prince is going to lead us, but I'll pick us off and indicate that what you're going to see tonight is a compilation of district work. Many school districts at times go out and do a full-fledged feasibility study for things of this nature. An architectural firm, $100,000 costs, to give you an idea, to pull full feasibility studies for a district planning. This is our administrative effort to show you needs that we see that are current, some clear first ones you're aware of, and an approximate 5-year plan of needs we have in the district. So what you see, and I'll start at the beginning and then turn it over to Mike. The first few items you're clearly aware of. We've worked on the finances. We've approved bids for the parking lots at the middle school and north side. So those first 4 items are taking place this summer. First items identified, and you'll see that we're projecting these starting here in 2022, this summer through 2024. Because when monies are in capital, it's not an annual budget-based expenditure. It doesn't have to be a July to June fiscal year. It's an adoption. The board takes action, says yes, replace the phone system, for example, with a dollar figure, and we work on that price point with the contractor and make that happen. It can go beyond into the next fiscal year. So the purpose of tonight is just to show you the general items, and then Mike's going to talk to you about the financing of that. And the step you made tonight as a board is the first big step in helping that take place. See maintenance vehicle replacement. Pine Street floors is already started. We've talked about the pool, and we're going to have an update on that later. So you see $1 million between the filtration system and the pool pack system. Pool envelope are the other ancillary items.
Dr. Tepper, could I please talk?
Sure.
Or just so, Mr. Prince, when you do go through this, and you kind of touch on it, but can you, so that everybody understands and whatever, of what is currently in the account that's funded already that is not, just so that, because I don't want people to think that there, again, there's a smoke and mirrors game, right? So, I mean, if that money's already been allocated, tell us and whatever. I'm assuming, I've kind of told everybody we got 100 grand and tell them what was not. That's all I just wanted to save the question.
And we talked about this in planning for tonight. Some of the work is in Buildings and Grounds Committee, and some of the aspect of this is in the Finance Committee. So it might be a time where we toggle back and forth to a document to help that.
That's fine.
And then the last item there that we're proposing should be included in the first years is vulnerability study needs. That's related to school safety, and we do vulnerability assessments through third party and giving suggestions basically for school safety with our buildings. And you can see 24-25 list of items includes some general building type items, tennis courts, needing replacement, cracking. They've already been sealed or coated multiple times. Lack of storage, vehicle replacement, trying to get that again with the board's foresight of looking at capital transfer each year. We can do those things and have a plan for replacement of vehicles. We've talked in the past about the age of the vehicles within the fleet. 25-26, you'll see some of the items here. Scoreboard, we're actually, I know there's people working on potential sponsorship to get that done now. Looking at Forge Bus Loop, the auditorium light and sound we talked about in here is aging. Give you an idea, we have a 1981 11-foot wing mower that we're trying to get to 2026. Entry from Campbelltown Road to the high school, additional vehicles. And then you start to see some of those items be cyclical by buildings. Sidewalk repairs and caulking. You'll see wireless access points and technology items spread throughout here. Finishing off the rest of Pines flooring in the hallways. Their PA system in that building. Recommending the softball dugout replacement. They're wood and failing. Athletic complex cameras. Roofing needs at high school. Ready for another round of vulnerability needs. Another vehicle replacement in 27, 28. The things that we're showing there, Mike's going to show you a financial ability where we believe we have the funds and able to manage that. What we don't, and what we've talked about in previous meetings, is the potential in 25, 26, where some bonds are callable. You could refinance as long as our market doesn't continue in the direction it's going. But we'll have some of the bigger needs. These are items that through refinancing and when other debt falls off, and how wraparound debt works for our community. In out years, our debt drops off where you have capacity to borrow and do some of these big projects. These numbers in these big projects are literally like a spitball throwing at a dartboard. Very little research into exact costs, types of needs there. But that gives you an idea of some big items that need to be considered in 25, 26 when we need to start looking at the potential of a borrow. So my suggestion is we go through the next phase and then it might come together with how are you recommending we fund this?
Okay.
To talk a little bit about or to explain the funding process, Bernie's going to pull up the worksheet to kind of work through the process. I want to take a second to talk a little bit about the technicality of the capital projects fund and some of the benefits that it provides by having a plan of how to finance the items. We probably could have went to any of the departments and actually gathering the information on the needs was probably one of the easiest parts of this process because everybody had that at their fingertips. They knew what things have been put off, what things they need to continue to look at and improve upon from a capital standpoint. The way we've been funding this in the past has been, if we finish the year with some extra dollars, we'll deal with some capital items. Having a finance plan in effect allows us to constantly work through and deal with processes in terms of planning. Having enough time to make sure we're getting the architect plans, having enough time that we're bidding the process, and also making sure we're lining that up, that most of this heavy lifting work in terms of construction for what we do happens during the summer when school, the major thing we're doing, is not in session. When we're taking a break from that, we don't want to interrupt as much as possible any of the education that goes on. So there's a fairly small window of the start of June through the second week of August that we have to get these projects completed. And that's a little bit of why some of those are split up from 22 to 24. If we could all get them all done expeditiously this summer, we would do that. But it would be way too much for any to pull off and not enough time to do so. So developing this plan, we took into account other documents we have. So on a monthly basis, we provide a capital projects fund report to the board that shows the amount of money in there and projects that are earmarked or have been earmarked for those expenses. That capital projects report and all that information is incorporated in what you're seeing here today. So there isn't this capital fund and then something else. This all coalesces into the same document. So from a starting perspective, the board a couple of months ago approved a $500,000 transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund to deal with some of the initial pool items that we noted. And the way that money was moved over is we had originally earmarked that for retirement increases or PSERS increases. And PSERS or retirement has gotten to a level standpoint. It's not going to drop. It's not going to go back down, but it's a place where it's already been built into this fabric of our budget. And so we know we can afford those things, and we need a little less funds sitting aside to make sure we can address those. So including that $500,000, there's currently $1.423 million, the first line item up there, that is currently in the capital fund. So those are all of the dollars. The next line item shows a couple of things that we earmarked for or have already provided contracts. So there's $193,784. A lot of that we set aside in our capital plan, $140,000 to deal with unknown sinkholes. So anytime, and we all know that they appear every once in a while. So we have earmarked money set aside for those unknown foreseen items that do happen somewhat quite often here. There's other small amounts in there of the other 30,000, some technology projects, and a north side, some GISA money that we withheld from contractors until they finished the projects. And so once those are complete, that money will be paid to them. Looking down through, as Dr. Kepler noted, we've identified from 22 to 24 about $2.2 million in projects. About 420,000 of that we've already dealt with and talked about with the repaving, and the other bulk of that is about 1.5 million for pool related items. So if we were to transfer, which will be our recommendation, $2 million from the general fund balance, that would bring the total line item up as of July 1st to $3.2 million, as you can see there. From a high level, using those dollars, if we do all the projects that are from 22 to 24, that's at 2.26 million. The board this evening approved $250,000, essentially, that we will be planning to move from the general fund to the capital projects fund on a yearly basis. Since 2 fiscal years would pass during that time, showing those 2 transfers of those additional funds coming out. So then when we get to June 30th of 2024, you'll see that the fund balance in that capital reserve fund will be about $1.4 million. Working down through the math on those projects, once again for 24-25, pulling the money out for those projects, transferring in the 250. You see by the time we get to 2028, the end of the process, we have a very, very small margin of error that'll probably be gobbled up by inflation, different things, as once again, this is a 5-year plan. So we want to make sure the real test or the thing that we'll accomplish here is setting up a funding mechanism so that district personnel can know when these items will be taking place. And once again, there's even some gnashing of teeth of that. Everybody wants everything taken care of as soon as they can, and we completely understand that. But this is how the plan will work out from that standpoint. So just to recap, the items noted in the capital plan from 2022 to 2028 would be fully funded, in our opinion, with the current capital funds available, about 1.4 million. A transfer that would happen, we would actually be recommending that we put a motion on the next board meeting agenda for the 23rd. The board approve a $2 million transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund, specifically to fund this plan.
And where those monies are coming from, so you clearly understand it, Mike has it ironed out in 2 allotments. That's 720,000 is excess revenue from the current year. Clearly revenue. So that was mentioned tonight. The state approves a budget after we're required to by law. So there was some more monies there. There was some additional revenue in EIT that came in, and a big portion of it is, and we had stimulus monies that we were able to use to our advantage and save some local dollars. That is not an anticipated ongoing item. The additional that where Mike gets the $2 million, that 1.28 is taking monies from your known general fund balance and transferring it to capital, reducing, I believe, in the next year to a 4.4%.
No, it will fall within the policy, fund balance policy of the school district. It'll reduce our total fund balance, projected fund balance for the current year from about a little over $7 million to just a little over $5 million after that transfer is made. One other special item to note is once, and this is per school code, for the capital projects fund, it is not meant to be a fund where dollars sit in perpetuity. We have 3 years from the time, if we make this $2 million transfer, July 1st, as of June 30th of 2022, we have until June 30th of 2025 to spend those dollars. And so that may have been some of the issue of why those transfers hadn't happened in the past. If there wasn't a comprehensive plan how to deal with them, you can't move the money over there without a plan how to spend it. You can, but you run into some issues with school code. So this also, the transfer of this money also falls in line with the school code, in which is showing obviously that that all the money that would be transferred in would be spent within that 2-year period, or that 3-year period, excuse me.
Just so that I'm clear on, you say the general fund will be about just over $5 million.
If we could just, that's the item that we'll be going over in the finance committee meeting.
Okay, sorry, I'll get that. I just wanted, because I know there's some assigned, unassigned.
Absolutely.
And it still puts us at like the 8%, but I know some of that 5 million really isn't part of the policy. So sorry.
But that was one of the difficult things this presentation is.
Well, no, that's why, I mean, because I'm very sensitive to that. The people do feel that we've got more in that than what it is. And the first reaction to that is that statement is correct. We do. The problem is, though, we do because the money's in the wrong account. It should be in another account, which is what I've tried to be telling everybody. It's not that I don't disagree that as it sits, if you look black and white right now, but that's, you know, sorry, I'll shut up.
So as I noted, just to recap again, there will be, if approved, or we would like to put a motion on the June 23rd board meeting agenda to transfer that $2 million. That will then start this process for us. As you noted, the major thing that is left from a planning standpoint from that 22-24 is continuing to deal with the pool. We've identified, I'll say, maybe a third of the cost through that $500,000 and the filter system. However, the pool pack is also no longer operational, and the envelope itself is in some need of some other things. So we're hoping that this transfer, we know, will take care of those items, along with some of the other ancillary things that Dr. Kepler reviewed.
Any questions thus far?
Pool update?
Or
is there any, I'm sorry.
I did actually have one, and it's going back to the sinkhole. I know we have some reserve funding, but do we have insurance for that?
We do, but sinkhole insurance pays to fill in the hole. Anything, or I'm sorry, the opposite of that. It pays whatever was damaged on top of the ground. So if a parking lot, a sinkhole opens up underneath the parking lot, the insurance will help us pay. The money, literally, that we spend to fill the hole is not covered by insurance. There would be large deductibles or higher premiums if we were to purchase sinkhole insurance that would cover every aspect if it was even available. So
the money set aside is just in addition to the insurance coverage that we have.
Correct, and mostly that is so that we're ensured that we have funds to fill the hole so that we can fix whatever's on top of it and use the insurance money for that. But because we have to use district funds to fix the sinkhole, the insurance will pay for whatever the sinkhole destroyed on top of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ready for pool update?
Not really.
But we have to. I'll hit the first item first because it's the easiest one. The attachment, the question was asked about what has the Palmyra Aquatics Club or PAC done over the years. And this is just a small portion of, in the last few years of what's been done, paid for by the community group. It's not like your typical booster because there's a community group with it, but they operate to a degree in general. So basically, to give you an idea, perspective of booster clubs that are giving, let's say $3,000 a year for 10 years or $35,000 towards the turf project. PAC, if you did that, their give has been greater than those other entities. So there are some differences in how they function, but PAC has been incredibly supportive and made many purchases over the years for the district. So the update.
We've been working with mainline pools. The first process, the first issue we were trying to fix was the pool filter. That presented a larger challenge when the group or the mainline we were working with noted that we were planning to take the pool filter down the stairs to get it in. They found out through the process that would not be a viable option at this point. And so now we are working with an architect to look at cutting a hole in the pool deck so that we can put the filter down through the pool deck. At this point, we're also asking them, once again, just so we have the knowledge, we're not sure what the actual final decision is, but we are looking at the possibility of putting some kind of hatch or something, once we put the hole there, that it is a way that we can get things up and down safely out of there and maybe solve a problem long term. I don't know that that's an option, but it's something we've asked our engineer to look at as they're providing the specs that are needed to not only cut the hole in the floor, but all the rigging and engineering that will be necessary to drop a 2,000-pound filter into there. We are still working through that process with the engineer. We've gotten a number that will not exceed $20,000 for that portion of the project. However, we do not have currently detailed specs and quotes from actual contractors at this point. So that's the part of the process we're working on. During the interim, and I'm going to kind of maybe turn this, the HVAC system has developed a leak, is no longer operational in the system. That was something that we were hoping we would be able to get a few more months or even a year out of. And part of that, when we were going through this process, we didn't have a full plan or understanding of how we were going to pay for proposed $1.5 million in the expense to detail the whole natatorium. We were only looking at pieces of those. As we presented with the capital plan, if we're able to transfer those dollars over, we can start to attack the pool project in a much grander scope in terms of all the needs and looking at it in less terms of fixing each piece and dealing with all of the items there. That's basically, the pool is currently empty. It took I don't know how many weeks to actually drain.
It took about a week and a half to drain it. We had to work with the sewer authority, which will flood them out and also fill the plant.
What's our cost to fill it?
Cost to fill it, I don't know off the top of my head. I do have it on the board. I calculated that years ago.
So bottom line, is it going to be operational for swim team this year? Or no?
So we knew going in, we weren't going to be operational at the start of the year with the filler system. That's becoming more of a belabored topic in trying to get the resolution of cutting a hole in the deck, engineering it so that we know we can get it accomplished. That's taking longer than expected. The filter is in order. PO going out. We anticipate that it's going to be longer into the fall than expected. We're hearing just meeting today occurring with folks that we're into late fall with the filter. The challenge then becomes with the pool pack failing, it needs replaced. We're showing a mechanism to fund it. What I believe we need to try to do is balance when do we anticipate the pool filter being taken care of, and does it make sense to repair that pool pack coil? Because we can try to braze it and repair it. Challenge, we're hearing it's not likely, that it's probably a purchase of a new coil of $15,000 to put that on
So I'm
to
hearing,
keep that portion operational for the winter months if possible.
I'm hearing slap a band-aid.
It would be, you know, if we're looking at November as an example of the potential pool filter.
So we're looking at, just so I hear this correctly, we're looking at, we can't put anybody in that pool until early November, late November.
And that's a rough time frame right now.
But I'm just
correct.
I want to make this very clear.
You're correct. No,
right?
that's clear. We don't have.
This is why, I'm sorry to go back in time here, but this is why not addressing the capital, because forget talking about the swim team at this point. We have a aquatics curriculum class, correct?
Right.
So now any kid that signed up to try to take lifeguarding, what is he doing? Or he or she, sorry, what are they doing?
Correct. There we'll have to reschedule and look at, I mean, when we were looking at the potential through September, we could adjust and do a lot of textbook work. Just communicated with our high school administration late today that we need to look at schedule change potential and alteration into
So
PE.
right now, classes that we currently offer in a curriculum, we're not talking about extracurricular, we're not talking about anything, we're talking about academics. Because of failure on somebody's part, I'm not going to say one, but because of failure to have a plan in place to address known problems, we're sitting here looking at each other. I mean, I don't mean to be, sorry,
No,
I'm blunt in my business with
we
guys.
have
So I mean, he's different, and I'm not trying, but, so, I mean, let's go down the road of hypothetical, if this thing doesn't get fixed by November 1st, when does swim team, I don't have a kid in swim team, maybe Ms. Monster, maybe you'd be able to help me. When does swim team start?
Winter sports, November.
When?
Preseason usually starts, what?
So October, November, so now we got kids that their parents are gonna have to drive them to another school, or we're gonna have to put them in a bus, another additional cost.
Is that school gonna charge us to rent that pool?
Absolutely.
And it
Why wouldn't
happens.
they?
We hosted Hershey High School in the last year or two because of their pool project.
And we charge them, right?
Pardon me?
We charge them. Right?
We did.
Yeah. So they're not gonna be nice and gracious to us and say, oh, hey, you guys didn't help us. We're gonna, so basically the bottom line, what I'm getting at is.
No, it's the district has operated on a shoestring budget. We've been conditioned
And I'm
to
getting,
manage
we're
and
getting
fix
flack
and repair.
over trying to give an extra $200 to actually fund a capital program. I'm getting flack over that now. Now we're affecting educational, aquatics, lifeguarding. I don't even have a kid vested in the swim team. I'm not a swim team. I did swim team as a kid, but I'm not a swim team dad. We're not a swim team family. But man, I gotta tell you, I'd be pissed. Sitting here right now. Bottom line is you need the 1.5 now. Because if we don't fix the pool right, if we just do another 18,000, whatever, can I add, and you probably don't have the number, but When was the last renovation we did on this?
2006, when this.
2006?
Right.
When should it be done? What's the frequency?
Pool pack, we had someone out who cut the quilt today, who told us that the quilt can't be fixed. He said you got 15 years out of it for what that unit has to do. He said in the climate that it's in, the chlorine and that pass through. He said you well got your money's worth out of it.
Yeah, you got lucky, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We keep the can long enough that we got.
So in your estimation, I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of question and answer, but I want this all public. I hope it's heard. I hope this is put on the YouTube and whatever. In your estimation or professional's opinion, should this be addressed every 10 years? Every 5 years? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to it, but I'm questioning. Like,
you're probably looking at every 10, 12 years. Your air handler.
So every 10 to 12 years, we should, and rough number, are we talking 500,000, 100,000, like anything on the general maintenance, right? What I'm looking at is the filtration system that we're looking at 1.5 million, right? Is what
the filtration system should last longer, because the pool pack is taking on the chlorine air all the time. It's pulling it in. Chlorine is very hard in any.
So is that a $500,000 spend that we're talking about every 10 years?
Right now, the pool pack, we have it priced for the pool pack. Right around, I'm gonna say it's on the high side of 300,000.
Okay,
That
so
doesn't include installation.
that doesn't or doesn't?
It does not.
So roughly, if I say 400,000, you'd feel comfortable. So 400,000 every 10 years, I need to find 40,000 that solely is allocated to the pool. Not that it's going to be spent every year, but 40,000. Okay, we'll go through a lot of numbers tonight, just so that I can, again, show you where the 250,000 has already been spent. But
Realistically speaking, given the current state of supply chain and all the other issues, is the 23-24 season even realistic?
22, 23?
No, I'm going out another year. I mean, I'm assuming 22 or 20, 22, 23 is probably a lot. So it's 23, 24?
I don't think so. Part of the issue we're having in taking this long is we are building in, 10 to 12 weeks for, if we put the purchase order in today, to get the filter in our door. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, that was a 3 to 4 week wait. And 10 to 12 weeks is, what they're telling us now. We shouldn't kid ourselves if it turns into 15 or 20 and say, why did this happen?
Yeah,
because
for to call in 10
we
weeks,
are in a
and try to
process
still another 10 to 12.
that it's we're in a little bit of an unknown. Heath and I were talking about this the other day, just trying to get people to do normal work that we would have 2 or 3 years ago. Been able to pick up a phone and schedule something is now, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get to you. And so we are building in some of those, which is why we're being very cautionary that 22, 23, it's going to be a Herculean effort. 23, 24, I think is much more viable. And like I said, we're not committing right now that we wouldn't have 22, 23. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure that happens. Unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is out of our power.
While we're on the subject, Heath, I'm sorry to put you on the spot again, but the turf, do you have just a rough number of what it is to replace that and the frequency that it should be replaced?
Most schools are looking, they were talking 8 to 10 years. I'm going by what Cedar Crest was telling me. They made 12 years out of theirs. There's probably could have went a little bit longer, but probably if it's well taken care of and people are using it properly and not putting stuff on that shouldn't be, you will probably get 12 years out of it based on what I saw.
Yeah. Just a rough, again, we're not going to hold anybody to it, but is it $500,000? Is it $1 million? Is it?
What the engineer talked about was when they went through the whole process was about $500,000.
So another $500,000 that roughly I'm looking at, I know you're 12 years, hopefully we get, but we're at 50,000. So now I've already spent 90,000 of the 250,000, we just, and were those annual costs, or not, I shouldn't say it, were those
No,
maintenance costs in your capital plan?
absolutely not.
It was recommended at the time of the project, what I recommended was take the $35,000 that we were paying in rent to in the net, keep that in the budget
Oh, I remember that
as
conversation.
a transfer to capital. So in 12 years, you had 420,000 towards that. And again, pressures on previous boards, I understand too, that try to minimize the tax increase, minimize the tax.
But that's where they cut it.
We use that to fund other things in the budget.
So getting back to this, because my policy has always been, I'd rather do it right rather than patch. And the question that I had asked from the get-go is where the filter is, there's all kinds of problems putting it there. And we talked about the fact where they're put today is outside. So are we barking up the wrong tree here again by putting it someplace it shouldn't be? We're gonna have problems virtually putting it where it is now. You understand what I'm trying to say?
We can look into that further and get some general
Before we
thoughts.
get past the point of no return,
Keith, do you even
I
have the
just feel like
space
we're
to do
throwing
that?
money away here.
Do you even have the space to do that?
We have space, but of course, you're gonna have to structure that, the climate control, I mean, you know.
Basically, the dollar amount's gonna go up.
I mean, you can't just throw a heater in there, because you gotta have backup, that goes, I mean, everything's freezing up, but.
Well, what I'm asking is the cost potentially greater by doing that versus putting it where it is now, knowing full well that we could have the same problems there.
Well, one of the things I noted, Mr. Guy, is that's one of the things we're looking at is that if we do end up dropping it through this hole, can we make that hole permanent? And so that is an access to get items down there. And like I said, we've identified that we could handle in the process that we have and the dollars we have noted about $20,000 to $25,000 in additional costs to make that happen. I asked the same question of Heath, and when he noted essentially we have to build a climate-controlled room, I believe that we're talking $200,000 to $300,000 to properly do that part of the project. If that's something that we want to continue to expand with and work towards, we can definitely do that. But once again, we're operating within a tight budget. Just gone through a plan to transfer, show we can move $2 million, but also shown that we're already going to spend that money or have plans to do so. So we can expand the process that we're looking at, but I think we would need some direction from this board that there's commitment to find those additional dollars if we decide to do that, because that is not in the plan.
Are there any overriding state regulations that would prohibit us from doing one or the other?
Could run into, if we add on to the building, we have no idea whether Lebanon County can come back and say you have to do stormwater management.
Okay.
As soon as we had looked at a year ago, putting a pole barn up so that we had storage, furniture, and get the trailers out of the back parking lot, that type of thing. For everything, it was like $130,000 for the building. Went to Lebanon County, that's where it got shot down. They basically said, you will have to do stormwater management.
We add on to the building envelope, we're going to have to. I mean, we just asked them about the gravel. Could we put gravel down for the parking area by baseball field hockey? The answer was not without going through stormwater.
Well, the Mike's point, you're killing the 23, 24 season. I guarantee you're not going to get through engineering of a building right now, nor the bidding of anything. People are having a hard time.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree with you. I mean, I thought the same thing, with the expense and the time far outweighs the current option, I think.
The pool pack itself, you did get a firm price on it. lead time on that is 29 weeks at the moment. That puts you into January.
So is it, so I guess now we're back to the original question. Is the condition and temperature of the pool going to be adequate enough in January that we can, or December, that the swim team can actually swim in it?
I mean, my answer would be you would have to have a filtration system replacement done. And we would have to purchase a new coil, spend $15,000, install a new coil as a patchwork system.
And hopefully the coil doesn't crap out during the season.
Correct, to get us to next summer when you could do,
Or
because
some
of
other
29
portion of
week
the
lead time.
HVAC system that isn't cool.
Yeah, without the pool pack being replaced, you have no heat or conditioning in the pool area. Our guys, we purchased the hot water heater, our guys installed it, it's sitting there waiting for the pool to fill back up and they can fire it up. So from our standpoint, our guys probably saved the district $20,000 right there, but I guess the options are wait 29 weeks, get the pool pack.
Our option really is do both, right? So that the swim team can actually, and even, sorry, but even academics, taking the extracurricular at it, but so that academics can actually happen. Instead of your 400,000, we need to be 415, 420, because we have to do the Band-Aid plus the replacement things.
Well, that's assuming we get a Band-Aid.
Well, it's assuming the Band-Aid stays on.
What's the cost of utilizing a pool in another district? Which I understand we can't do for the academics. We can't be busing kids in a 40-minute class, but at least for the swim team.
Yeah, I just looked up earlier in the week what Derry Township School District was charged here, and I want to say it was $10 an hour per lane.
Coach has been in conversation with two schools, two local schools. She's got great resources there, so got that ball rolling anyway.
Would we be required to bus the kids? Or would we then ask the parents in these high gas prices, everything that everybody
We'll
keeps
certainly
talking?
be at their mercy as to when we can train. Busing, probably a good idea if we can do that.
I mean, we should, right? I mean, it's not their fault that
Right.
the pool crapped out and whatever.
It's gonna be 5:30 in the morning, right?
Or late at night.
Correct.
But
Hershey
that
High School
busing
was here
cost, we don't get
before
any,
the sun came up.
we don't get any reimbursement on the busing cost from the state on that, or would we still get reimbursement?
No, we only get reimbursement for to and from school transportation, so any extracurricular activities don't receive any.
And that hasn't been factored in as well. Okay.
One thing I think the board needs to think about it, if we are going to try to salvage the 22-23 season. Get that pool back even up and do the Band-Aid. We need to get a price on the coil and availability. They can come back and say, the coil's 29 weeks after, then we don't have an option. If they come back and say the coil's a 4-week delivery time, we get a price, we can go from there. Again, it's a Band-Aid, and unfortunately, once you spend that money, things have to be all the way to scrap. We'll waste the whole year.
Well, I know you need more than just one, but my advice or my recommendation is, yeah, I'd bring the motion next week, the full pack and the Band-Aid, and you can't get here fast enough next Thursday.
We won't, the full pack is in the current capital plan, so if you approve the $2 million, we have what we need to go about this process and do what we just talked about here today.
But you need direction to add the Band-Aid for next week?
No, we have our direction, and that can be incorporated, $15,000 in the 2 million, we'll make that work.
Okay.
In terms of what's going on.
No, it bothers me to spend $15K knowing that we're gonna haul it away, but the alternatives are really bad. I mean,
And when you break it down to an economic standpoint, if it's $8,000-9,000 for us to rent somewhere else, and another 6 or 7 or 2 or 3 to transport students,
it's a wash.
We're not talking about a huge delta. I understand the principle and I agree with you 100%. But once again, I take a look at it from the financial standpoint with the choices we have, we're probably spending the money either way.
Yeah, because it's still a gamble, because we could purchase the coil, have it installed, ready to go, and we're still waiting on the pool filtration process and whether we're gonna get that hardware, the material for its installation.
Did I hear that there's multiple coils?
On that, there is another coil that was checked.
Sure, the first one was checked too.
You checked everything and it appears to be good. I will say the 15,000 for the coil, that is a number that is just being pulled out from people throwing that number around, okay? I had a call after Mike and I discussed it all week, I think a day or two ago, I made a call to Pool Pack and said, I need a price and a delivery time on that coil. They didn't get back to me yet on it, so we would be able to get on a better price. I mean, it could come in at 8,000.
Okay.
We don't know the true price. I'm pushing my guys to see if they feel comfortable enough that they can place this, so that it takes some of the other costs out.
Thank you.
So is it just raised copper then, Keith?
We had a contractor out, repairs, air and coils and that. He looked at it, he said, they would start having kind of hard, and they said you lose a lot of your efficiency and a lot of your heat out, he said. Then when you start patching, he said, does it really hold? He's not sure. They didn't feel comfortable enough to say, his comment was, it has to be replaced. They didn't feel comfortable enough to see the tackle it, that it was gonna hold on at that time.
But given your 29 weeks, if we don't act on that, next school year's academic program of the pool is in jeopardy.
Yeah, and the problem you have is, if they repair it, it breaks in December, you got no heat in that pool area.
Yeah.
Because that's the only heat in that pool area. So.
There's a third population too who's impacted, and that is our youth program.
Would there even be a fourth? I've heard that there's a senior swim program, a sponsor. I'm sorry to ask you, but I know you're involved with the pool heavily. So.
Not anymore.
Oh, okay.
My daughter's out 5 years now.
Parks and Rec runs evening swim type classes. And
is that for the seniors though? Or?
Yes.
Okay, so not only the youth, but it's the seniors that use the pool. So we're back to the pool's not just for the school, it's a community service type thing. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, Rec runs programming for youth and adult.
Okay.
And then PAC is separate from that, our youth program.
That wrap up our pool update, hopefully.
We'll continue to update as we go through the processes and get them.
Okay. Any public comment? I have a bunch of folks signed up, but I think some already spoke. I don't know if they want to speak a second time. Mr. Clayton? Thank you.
Yes, I could be wrong, but I thought I heard in all that a insinuation or suggestion that possibly the public's demand in the past for frugality in regards to how things are spent and how things are built and how things are done has led to it all biting us at this point in time. And pay me now or pay me later was possibly being put out as to why we're where we are right now. And in response to that, I would like just to say that I don't know why the public should just quietly go along and pay for whatever additional costs that come due whenever things do have to be done. I really wonder, I'm not asking anybody really to do it or anything like that, but here, I've seen a lot of freestanding natatoriums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just out there they're by themselves. They're not under some school building. They're not this, they're not that. They're built for easy access, for maintenance. They're built for a long time, you know, and I have no idea why this natatorium, this pool was built the way it was, which has now caused the whole set of problems. I mean, really, you do wonder the wisdom of whoever it was in the beginning who hired the engineering firm, the hired the designer, you know what I mean? But is anybody up there on the board now suggesting that obedience to frugality of the residency is the reason this pool is the way it is everything, and now it's coming back to bite us?
I don't know that I'm saying.
Was that part of the implicit that was being said?
I don't know that I'm saying that. What I'm saying is the board under pressure, like I said before.
When under pressure? Back at the beginning?
No, I'm talking about every board, right? Last meeting, I asked Dr. Kepler, they proposed a tax increase every year, right? They have never gotten their proposed ask.
Right, but here.
So what I was trying to say is every time, kind of like what happened with the turf. The turf got built. There was a proposal by the administration to fund the replacement costs of the turf annually, and due to pressure to continue to cut taxes, that money has been taken away.
Right, but in regards to that, you can say, you can wonder the
I agree with you, the pool should probably never have been built.
I mean, really, I mean, the residents are set up with an option of, well, here's a better way, and then, oh, this better way is going to come with possibly more costs than the old way, which just kind of like the lady with the pencils and the paper, and every kid should have the iPad, and because that's the new way. That's the new way is now turf, but along with the turf, then comes possibly greater maintenance costs, okay? And if you don't want to pay, if you don't want to go along, if you don't want to, the price just goes up and up and up. If you don't want, then you're the reason for the problems and the cratering of things and everything like that. So here, somebody decided to put that pool under a building as opposed to a freestanding, which I would think have made the long-term maintenance simpler, and somebody decided to do turf as opposed to doing whatever needed to maintain natural grass, okay? And then along with all those decisions, which I really don't think that the average resident really has much input into, but along with that comes these, well, now that we got it, we got to pay for it. And if you don't want to pay for it the way we say it needs to be paid for, then you're the problem.
I don't think, but I would agree with your statement with this one caveat. I'm not saying it needs to be paid for the way I think it needs to be paid for. I'm stating that, to Mr. Dressler's point, the professional recommendations are every 10 to 12 years. I showed up to board meetings and asked Dr. Kepler. He and I kind of vigorously fought against the turf. I lost that battle, right? That's what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is because the battle got lost, right? I mean, the turf's in. Everybody that hates it. But to your point, so what do? Take a bulldozer to it? Because I'll tell you, I know a guy that would love to take a bulldozer to it.
I understand.
And the pool, do we fill it in? Because I'm with you. Mr. Cobalt proposed to fill it in, and got hammered for it. That's just where I'm at.
The school has no problems creating these money ticking time bombs.
That's what it does. I mean, that's what a pool is.
It does. And here,
a pool's a hole in the ground that you dump money in.
The decision to create these ticking time bombs, I really don't think that the public has much really public say in regards to it. It just happens, okay? And the vote is taken, and you know what? Way back whenever it happened, it was decided not to build a natatorium that was freestanding. It could be more easily accessed. Somebody decided to build a ticking time bomb of how do we drill a hole to put something into to maintain this thing. Like, are you kidding me?
You're right.
Okay, in regards to
you're absolutely right.
Engineering ignorance.
It's filled with decisions that should have happened 10, 15 years ago, I told you at the last board meeting, 10, 15 years ago, they should have built one elementary school, which is what Ridge Road was originally designed to do. And there would have been a bunch of tax or cost saving measures to do that. I wasn't here for that. I wasn't here to do that. I didn't attend that. But had whatever the decision done to do that, you would have eliminated administration positions. You would have eliminated roof repairs. You would have eliminated asphalt thing. Again, I think you're exactly right. But the problem is just because a bad decision happened, who's to say it was a bad decision at the time?
Mr. Jones,
I don't know.
if I may, to Mr. Cleet, I think, I understand your concern with pointing to the frugality of residents in the district as our problems. I would suggest or propose that it's more due to lack of long-term planning than it is to frugality. Although we have done a very good job of being frugal.
And where does the bottom line buck stop with long-term planning? I mean, I remember a former board president saying, I'm not the expert here. I just take my advice from other people, okay? And I assume that they're the expert, and I just kind of like do what they say, okay? And as to whether you were there whenever that statement was said or you weren't, you know, I know. But anyway, here, then my suggestion is maybe you all should pay more attention as to the quality of advice that you're getting for making long-term decisions. And that's why I keep saying time after time that I give my little 5-minute speeches, you know, how about a little bit more opacity or transparency? How about a little more Q&A openness? How about a little more opportunity to say, whoa, have you considered this? Have you considered that? And you know what? I don't think whether anybody hears me, anybody cares, because you all do what you want to do, it appears, okay? And so now we're kind of maybe bad-mouthing people from bygones day, but you're right, Mr. Jones. We're on the hook.
Just one second.
We are on the hook.
Yeah, Mr. Clee, you're exactly right. As you saw that got put up there, Mr. Kepler, can you put it, or Mr. French, can you put up there? The first one of the capital plan, the first thing that I said when I first got onto this board was before I can, I've talked to some community members here, before I can do anything to cut what is now, I have to know what this is. And I have to present it to you. Now, I'm actually going to commend them because I told them it needs to be here by June 23rd. They're a week ahead of schedule. There's the transparency. This is what the administration thinks needs to be done. You pointed out to the Q&A, Mr. Guy, I'll let you get your say. Sure. I'm allowing it, right? I've been to be honest with you, I haven't attended board meetings until I started running, right? I remember sitting back there getting heckled because I was talking and we were having this kind of discussion. I'm back to the same point. I'm getting nailed from everybody, and people probably, you know, this meeting's gonna go way long tonight, but we're having a dialogue. And every time you've gotten here, I listen to you. I know that a lot of people listen to you. And this is what I'm trying to say. So Mr. Cleave, you've got it now. This is the transparency. This is what the administration thinks we need to get. Am I saying that's what we have to do? Am I saying that's what we need to do? No. But now we can start spending the next year, the next 3 years that I'm around, talking about it. And as a community, right? And again, we have to remember, like I said, wasn't a fan of the term. I'll tell you, I actually talked
with one. Are we locked into the term?
I know.
Are we locked in?
What?
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah.
Well, but so that locks us in.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we can't return it. I mean, listen, I'll tell you, I know a guy, and he probably will hate that I won't say his name, but we had a conversation, Mr. Kova and I, at a lacrosse banquet, right? And he's very adamant that it was a scam, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And does not, when the boosters votes to fund the money or whatever, you want to know what my comment was to him? Hey, we wouldn't be able to get some of our revenue from some of the stuff if we didn't have that. And what did he say? He actually paused and was like, I can't argue that. So the next time we have our booster meeting, that obviously I'm part of that group, that's going to be my comment to them. Hey, we need to give the school district back some money because there's an event that now, because we have that, the school gets revenue. The booster club is very much a part of it, and we get a benefit from that. Absolutely, we need to kick back to that. I'm trying to give you the transparency, is what I'm getting at. I'm trying, but the problem is, it's not just going to happen in a day. Just 1 second, Mr. Funfer, Mr. Guy, but I got you. I'll let you just a second.
Question, because I think I was understanding what Mr. Quaid was asking about the block at the end of the 10 or 12 years, however, before the resurfacing of the turf needs to happen. At that point, do we have to resurface it? Right.
What we have to do is because of safety, right? You have to do what In the Net does or whatever. There's going to have to be a test that's done, right? That certifies that it is an adequate playing surface. If it's not an adequate playing surface, we have two options. One, replace it as such to get it an adequate playing surface, or two, not use it. And then deal with where do our kids go, because then we open ourselves up to liability of if a kid get injured on a surface that was deemed not adequate.
So it can't be removed.
You can remove it, but how, you know how much money it's going to cost to remove it?
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. I don't mean that rudely. That's kind of just my brashness of it. We can, you're absolutely right. We can do anything. We can take a bulldozer to it.
Okay.
But again, I'm going to tell you, I'm not in favor of that because then you just wait. I mean, you want to talk about really wasting taxpayer money? Because to correct me if I'm wrong, we pulled a bond to do that, right?
Correct.
So we're paying a loan, or we're still paying off that loan.
Correct.
So we're still paying them. So if you bulldoze it, you'll take out another loan to eliminate it, and you'll be paying double on loans to not have the facility.
I'm not suggesting.
No, I'm just so that.
All I'm suggesting is that we have some idea of what the cost is for the alternatives, so that we can talk about it in that way.
Okay, so if you guys can.
These are choices. We either resurface it or we replace it, and these are going to be at least a rough idea of what the costs are.
Yeah.
What would you like to do?
I agree with you. So can you get a place or get a price?
Well,
I'm not sure it's going to go over well, but get a price, and I'm sure I'll get on Facebook, but a price to basically demo we'll just demo the whole place, go back to grass. Yep.
Just a rough idea. Going out, paying for an engineer to.
No, we wouldn't do that. And that, all these numbers are going to be in 2022 numbers, and we're talking about 10 years out. So they're not going to be relevant in terms of when the actual need is, or they may not be relevant in terms of that price.
We're talking about for the turf field.
Oh, it's going to be way higher than the replacement cost, I'll guarantee you. Because you're going to have to go down, they had to go down like 36 inches or something.
There's 1,700 truckloads.
1,700 truckloads of stone.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to find 1,700 truckloads of clean dirt that's not soil contaminated to come. Okay.
Well, and the other thing is, the reason they went 7 feet down, stormwater bank.
Was what?
Stormwater bank. That is part of your stormwater bank. You are holding 2 days worth of water in those two fields and letting it go out slowly out through into the retention pond that we have and now into drainage.
So that's a good point. They're already built on essentially stormwater management pond, so we may not be able to turn it back into grass if it needs to stay.
Yeah, but if you could just get us the rough numbers, because again, you're asking, I'm trying to get you the information that you want. Thank you, Mr. Feinfelter. Mr. Guy, did you want?
Yeah. Hey, guys. I'm going to ask you a question. How many people here were alive in 1967? Anybody on this board? Okay.
Close.
Because the decisions with this building were determined by boards, 1967, 1968, long before any of you were born. Why, sir, and I'm not defending, I'm simply pointing out, you can criticize the pool and what was done, but in the early 70s, that was state of the art.
Yeah.
This building, believe it or not, was totally electric. It had metal walls with the theory that we could change the, the figuring and all those things until someone all of a sudden decided we can't change them because there's wires in there now. All I'm saying is we're Monday morning quarterbacking here. We can't change those things. We have to live with those things. What we can change is what we're planning to do in the future. Your plan.
That's what I.
Because 6 years on the board, I never saw that. I never saw that. It was always the fact we don't want to spend the money because we don't want the taxes to go up. I think one of the most disturbing things was my last year when one of the outgoing retiring board members said something to the effect that what we need to do is we need to do exactly what you're talking about. We need to set money aside. We've got to create these various funds. And I sat there in amazement because every time we tried to do that, he voted against the tax increase that would have established that. So it's very easy for us to sit here and criticize. We can't change the past. We can change the future. And that's a very key situation. And why is there a pool? Because 50 years ago, the community saw the benefit of the pool and wanted that pool. And again, you pointed out so many times with Ridge Road, we could have possibly done other investments, but none of us were involved in that. But on the other hand, we were doing social welfare for the community because this school belongs to the community and needs to take care of the community. So we need to go in the direction you're going here and to spend countless hours talking about, what we did in the past. We have no control over that. Let's just make sure we don't make the same mistakes in the future.
I agree. I think the long and short answer to your question, Mr. Klee, Mr. Kleinfelter, is what I said at the beginning of the board meeting. Right now, we are currently sitting at 18 people on Zoom, 9 of which, based off the numbers that I continue to do, are either board members, administration, or whatever. So other than the handful of you that are here, I'm sure it's probably a whatever statement, but the realization that I would come to is they just don't care. And it is you that care, but what ends up happening is what Mr. Koval experienced. The pool gets floated, and so he immediately, to your point, said, how much is it costing to do the poll? How many phone calls, emails, whatever did you get over that?
A lot.
Nobody comes out until all of a sudden the threat of their domain or whatever is there, and then all of a sudden, huge community involvement, right? I mean, it's like outdoor ed, right? Everybody, nobody came or attended, and all of a sudden outdoor ed was threatened to be cut. And man, I saw signs everywhere, Facebook, blah, 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 shut up. Same thing that'll happen, right? We'll float the turf. You'll probably hear it tonight. The board's gonna bulldoze the turf. That's gonna be the Facebook post, right? And everybody's gonna join on and this and that. And it's like, that's not at all what we said, right? It was a question that was brought up by a community member. We asked the administration to try to do transparency, and that's what ends up happening, Mr. Klee. We try to give transparency, and at the end of the day, we get hammered.
What I will say is I think this board is trying to address your concerns. We put the plan up there. We are trying to look to the future. We are trying to squirrel away some money so these things don't come back and bite us in the future. We're trying to put things like the pool and the turf on a maintenance plan or a maintenance schedule to avoid these sorts of issues down the road. And honestly, I think that's the responsible thing to do, and I'm trying to be responsible, and I'm trying to be a good steward of tax dollars. And I think a maintenance schedule and planning ahead for these things is the way to do that.
I thank you for that. I appreciate it. My concern is that essentially, if the most expensive, the most whatever, and that's where my concern as to profiteering, the potential for profiteering, and it's hard for the public to know when profiteering is part of the equation, part of the game or not. Okay, that somebody can make a buck somehow in regards to, well, how do we fix this? We have 3 ways to fix it, but out of those 3 ways to fix it, if we pick option B, then some butt of mine is going to make a buck that they wouldn't otherwise make. Okay, but my concern is that when everybody in their own wisdom, they make the decision that this is, and usually it's rather expensive, this is the way to solve the problem for the day, then if everybody doesn't get on board, if they question, if they whatever, then we're people that don't care about this, we don't care about that, okay, and here that the only way to be a responsible resident of the district is to essentially just go along to get along, and it usually ends up with whatever percentage of increase.
No, I agree.
That's why we have a board of
and we're
directors.
supposed to be really good with that, because otherwise we're not really responsible citizens, and we don't really want the district to flourish.
Yeah, I can tell you, that's my concern as well. KK, Dr. Kepler can ask you. There's some fire suppression systems that they are looking at that they need to, whatever, right? They asked me, because I'm in that industry, I recommended, not that I hate them, but they're my competitors, right? I don't want to see them get a job or whatever, but I will never allow my company to bid on that. I won't. It's not going to happen, even if I can find a way legally. Dr. Kepler knows, he brought something, Mr. Wilder knows, there was a game that was going to happen, or that was going to get canceled, unless they had an official to come officiate the game. He came up to me with the paperwork, and I was like, I'm not getting paid today, right? I was like, even if I could, I wouldn't, because I'm not going to do that. He took the paper, didn't whatever. Somehow the paper got to Dr. Kepler, and it was signed and everything as if I was supposed to be paid. I came in on a different shop this one day, and he goes, Josh, I just want to make sure, you've said it before, you're not going to be paid. He goes, this isn't your handwriting, right? And I was like, no, I'm not. So rest assured, I will stay as far away from any kind of personal benefit from here. And if I see anybody doing that, I will call that out like you wouldn't believe. Because,
I appreciate that.
Because that's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to do is leave it better than I found it. Try to, as Mr. Cowell said, be a good steward with the money. That's it. So.
And I believe that that's what we're all
Yeah, I don't think anybody on this board's doing, absolutely. No, Facebook's going to disagree in about half an hour.
Do we have any other public comment, Mr. Kleinfelder? Anybody else? Okay, well, that ends buildings and grounds.
Thank you very much. So moving on to finance, looks like we have some special education tuition contracts.
Yeah, this is just some kind of yearly housekeeping, a normal process for us. So these are the known special education contracts that we will need for next year. And these are all incorporated, have been incorporated in the budget numbers that you saw.
This is already budgeted for.
That's correct.
Very good. And that takes care of number 2 as well, then, the extended school year.
Yeah, those type of items will happen starting next June. Were they currently for the for this ESY year? Thank you. Dr. Settle.
Okay, so insurance renewals, then, number 3.
It's another yearly item. So our insurance, liability insurance package, specifically workers' compensation, we pay a yearly premium. This covers the entire payroll of the district for all workers' comp, and workers' comp insurance is required by law. The other insurances are for liability, automotive, umbrella, errors and omissions, and the total amount of that process. Just a little bit about our life. Use a broker to work through to with a company called CM Regent, and we are recommending their renewal. We do not put the prices every year.
On what end?
So I believe next year, for the renewals for next year, we will go out to bid. However, we do look for companies like CM Regent to provide comprehensive liability for all of our needs.
Excellent. So healthcare services.
And this is another item from a special education perspective, just providing some contracts for the pediatric services. You can
And the 22-23 school position of record.
This is a change.
Same practice, different physician. So for years, we've had Lebanon Valley Family Medicine serve as school physician. And Dr. Blubaugh is taking over the reins of that role.
I can tell you in comparison to other districts, Lebanon Valley Family Medicine provides quite a discount in terms of we pay a very small nominal fee for this service and coverage throughout the year.
And thank Dr. Mark Leach, who's done that service for us for a number of years.
And they come and take care of the sports visit and everything else.
That's currently in our agreement with our trainer.
Oh, that's what the OA.
Oh, yeah. Previously, Lebanon Valley Family Medicine did that. There was a cost that families paid. OAL, as part of their agreement, does do those free of cost.
The non-sports physicals that were required are included in what the school physician will cover. Once again, that comes at a cost of about $20. Those school physicals, though, are something that the district pays for and covers.
And they sign off on our annual standing orders for our nurses.
Great. Alrighty, that brings us to number 6, the joint purchasing bids.
Joint purchasing is this is a process we use to try to save some dollars by economies of scale. Our IU 13 runs a joint purchasing process in different areas: instructional, art supplies, technology, copy paper, instructional supplies. Those items are quantity of the types of items that are there. We report those to them, and then these are the prices that came through in their bid process. I do want to point out here, copy paper, the number there of showing last year of $189 was the reflection of the school using as much storage or as much inventory of copy paper that we had. So we tried to purchase as little as we could. The yearly budget for that is around $28,000. You can see where copy paper came in more than double. So the entire.
And that's from last school year?
No, this will be what we pay this school year. The 21-22 that's noted in there is $189. I wanted to point out that was kind of an anomaly. Our yearly spend is normally around around $30,000. As you can see, the bids came in twice as much as that. So this is some of the things we're going to experience as we go through purchasing for this year, that we tried to, as much as possible, add 3, 5, and sometimes 10% onto our estimations when we were going through the budget process. Sometimes you don't figure out how close you are until the prices come through, and copy paper was one that was very surprising.
In reverse of that, to kind of Mrs. Bosworth's point, right, we're going to paper and pencil, but because we have the technology, is there a way we can kind of eliminate photocopies and do more technology driven, or is that?
It's
hard?
significantly reduced from where we were. I mean, the amount of paper we use now compared to 3-4 years ago, significantly.
We're also not purchasing the textbooks for students, the workbooks and things
The
like
hard
that.
copies,
Yeah, because we didn't use all of them, and the costs for those were outrageous. So we're copying what we need to copy, so we're saving on the budget of the curriculum stuff. And that also with going to iPads and stuff, teacher curriculum, student textbooks, things like that, we're not paying, they're up to like $100, $150 a book, and they're now online. So we're saving that, having the iPads as well.
Number 7?
Sure.
So taking a look at the projected revenues, expenses, and the balance.
So I think I've kind of provided this somewhat in a very general format before, so just trying to provide a little bit more detail in terms of where we think we're going to end the current year in terms of additional fund balance. So we'll walk through a little bit of that, and this is where this ties back into the capital projects discussion that we just talked about, because we'll show that the overage or our projected revenue above expenditures, how that money will be used in terms of that transfer. So just going through, starting with the revenue, we are projecting, well, I'll walk through a little bit of the high points here in terms of some of the differences. One of the largest ones, obviously, is real estate transfer tax. You can see there that we're projecting a little over $800,000 total receipt of those, and budgeted around $600,000. This is very much an item that we have no control over. The process is that when any property is sold, there is a 2% transfer tax that's applied to that sale. 1% of that money goes to the state. The state keeps that. The other 1% is split in half between the municipality and the school district for which the sale happened. So this number is completely dependent on the number of sales and the dollar value of those sales that happened during the year. If a bunch of $100,000 homes are sold, that's obviously a little bit smaller real estate transfer tax than maybe a large corporation, a strip mall, something like that, obviously has a higher dollar value and would create more in additional tax revenue. This is an item that we don't necessarily chase around in a budgetary perspective in terms of projecting for the next year, because in my experience, the real estate sales in one year really have little to no effect on the real estate sales of the next year. It's an economy-driven item. We happen to be, spot right now where real estate is a very hot item and selling above many times what it normally would have 3 to 4 years ago. That's creating a little bit of additional revenue. Delinquent real estate taxes are somewhat of a cyclical item in terms of how that money rolls through. When someone does not pay their real estate taxes as of December 31st of a specific year, that money is then turned over to the county for collection, and then the money is then provided to the district as the county collects it. Technically speaking, when someone's taxes go delinquent, they have 3 years to pay that bill before their house would be subject to sheriff's sale. So some people take that 3-year process, let their real estate taxes go delinquent, then they're able to spread that cost over a 3-year period. And so it's a little bit cyclical in terms of how that money comes into us or flows through, where people are in that time process. Anticipate local revenue in total to be about 1.5% above where we had budgeted. Looking at state revenue, these are all really products of not having any of this information prior to passing our budget. So these are items that were basic education, I believe, was increased by about 3% from a budgetary perspective from the 2021 year to get to this 6.87 number. As you can see, the state then approved a budget that gave us about 5.5% increase, which generated that 7.2 million. Had we had a definite idea of what that is, I would definitely use those numbers in the budget. What we were presented with this year was a governor's budget that proposed a 25% increase in state funding. And the opposition to that just saying that's never going to happen, not providing a number that we could say, well, at least we know this is the floor. Unfortunately, that's the negotiation process that happens with the yearly budget at the state. And so many of these differences are just due to not having that information in a timely fashion. The ESSER funds, I want to draw your attention to that's a function of spend. It's not like we're losing out on funds. We had anticipated to spend about 1.8 million in the ESSER box that we're allowed to spend those funds on. Through the end of June, we're anticipating that we're only going to spend about 1.5 of that. But once again, for us to receive the 1.8, we would have had to spend the 1.8. So you'll see a little bit of a reduction on expenditures. ESSER funding is not yearly funding. It's provided that all ESSER funds have to be spent by September of 2024. There's no loss of funds. This is just a reflection of the planning and the items that were purchased through that. Overall, we're anticipating our revenue coming in about $719,825, or about 1.2% above budget. Are there any questions on just the revenue portion of what we reviewed? So we'll go over to the expense side. It's really a summary. This will include expenses, revenues, and so going down through these line items, as you can see, we start with the revenue projection number updated. As before, we're showing total salary figures. This is for all salaries that the school district pays for all items through the general fund. As you can see, we're kind of right at the budget number for those in terms of where we project we will be in salaries at the end of the year. Benefits, you can see that we are projecting that we'll be about $100,000 at least over budget for benefits. That's directly related to our healthcare benefits. We budgeted about, I believe, about 3.9 million for this year. It looks like it's going to be closer to 4.2 or so. I caution that this is one of the items we are self-funded, so we pay for our claims as they're incurred. So we still have a couple of weeks here in June. There's such thing as run out, so there'll be claims in July that we'll have to move back. So I caution this would be a place that I'm probably 90% confident in that number, but there are items that can come through that can change that to make it go higher. Really everything else fell in place there in terms of the other bulk of this is our PSHRS costs. Once again, those are calculatable based on our salaries. As we go into the department level budgets, you can see really the place we ended up the most positive on was special education. And that was just due to some numbers coming in a little bit better than we had expected as we go through and look at what our dollars are there. The bottom, you see the business office other, that includes all of our debt, which is the majority of that line item. You'll see that that's $200,000 over. That's where the transfer of $500,000 that the board approved earlier for the pool, that has to flow through. We have to show that as an expense in the general fund, and then we'll show it as a revenue in the capital fund. But that is the reason that is showing $200,000 over that budget due to that capital transfer. And actually, by the end of the day, If the board approves the $2 million transfer that we've recommended, that'll show that way in a technical standpoint that the expense cost increased to transfer that money out, and then we'll show the revenue on the other side. So it'll look like a bigger number, but it's just us switching kind of between hands in terms of those expenditures. So you can see when we look at our total expenditures, razor thin in terms of that difference, where we thought we were going to be and where we end up, just under $200,000 under where we expected to be. However, once again, I caution that could be eaten up by some medical claims through there. So those are the expenses. What I'll go to next is the fund balance discussion and kind of show how this all flows through in terms of the transfer to the capital fund that we noted. So we're looking at the 21-22 school year. Currently, as you can see, we would have started the year with about a $6.5 million fund balance. In total, the projection, and once again, this could change, but this is the projection at this point, is that we'll be transferring around $900,000 additional into that fund for a total of $7.4 million. Or if you scroll down almost kind of to the very bottom, yeah, right there, you can see the math working through, as I described, that we would be reducing our fund balance to just a little over $5 million. That's because of the $2 million transfer to the capital fund that's been proposed. And then the breakdown of that $5.4 million below that. 3.48 is unassigned, and that can be used for any items as necessary. And that ends up being just about a little under 6%.
So that's what people are referring to. This is where I probably go wrong. This is where I think that's the number that everybody's referring to of the 4 to 8% of policy.
That is correct.
Is it unassigned? Assigned can't be factored in.
No, well, our policy is more aggressive than school code, and so that is, so the two numbers would be the 3.84 and 1.3. Those are assigned and unassigned fund balances. So when those are added together, I believe that's just right around 7.9%.
Okay, we're within 8%.
It is there. I would also mention that it is very critical that the policy also notes that if it's above 8%, the board can make a decision, doesn't need to, but it has the ability to make a decision to spend those dollars on one-time expenditures only. That is very specific in the policy that says those dollars should be spent on one-time expenditures only if it is used to reduce those funds. As we're providing it today, with the $2 million transfer, setting up the funding for our capital fund, which is extremely crucial, also provides that we're within the policy under that 8% guideline. And from an administrative recommendation, and once again, a board decision ultimately, I wouldn't stray too far from that 8% because those are the things we need to dig into as things happen during the school year that we absolutely must take care of to ensure education continues to occur to our standards.
Okay, question. Does that policy need to be reviewed? I mean, is that policy that you just stated a wise policy?
In my opinion, Mr. Guy, it in effect is a way that led us to where we are today. We as a district have made the decision not to save too many dollars or set too many dollars aside. Capping the assigned and unassigned fund balance at 8%, I don't know too many districts that are doing that. Most districts look at what the school code says, and that says unassigned fund balance can't be more than 8%. It specifically notes that you can assign fund balance and pulls it out of that process. Our policy includes that.
I'm just, in my own mind, I'm looking at that. That seems to be part of the root of the problem, and that we should, in this whole process, fix that.
I reviewed, I think, last time showing fund balances of our surrounding schools in Lebanon County.
So yeah, so
most of them have
basically
significantly higher fund balances.
You had Annville, Cleona at 24.2%, Cornwall at 25.6%, Elko at 19.3%, Lebanon at 34.9%, Northern Lebanon at 8.9%, and us, if you know, before the transfers at 10.75. So we're still on the very low end of the spectrum from what it looks like.
And I guarantee every one of those other school districts is in compliance with that 8% fund balance. So they're not holding any more than 8% unassigned. They're assigning others to get up to that 20%, 15%, those guidelines. Our policy would not allow us to do that.
Oh, so our policy wouldn't, because everybody else is running.
Well, it allows it. The policy doesn't say we can't do it. It says that if it goes above 8%, the board can make the decision because it does, once again, to the point of policy and language, it uses shall and may. And the board may use the funds. It's not required. It even states in the policy it is okay for the fund balance. It says that the fund balance, assigned and unassigned, may also go above 8%. Doesn't say it shall stay below. So that's the identity. So one of the items that I was asked was, we're going to collect more revenue than we're spending this year. Where is that coming from? That's what I think I did here in terms of showing on the revenue side where we were better than our budget, collecting about $700,000, $720,000 more than we thought, only about 1.2% of the money, total funds that were there, and then showing by department over and under budget for those line items, so you can directly see where the source of those items are. And like most years for the district, the overage comes because we've collected a little bit more revenue than we anticipated. I do want to stress once again, 1.2% means that we were 98.3% correct, which these weren't my numbers, but inheriting those, we take great pride in being that close with a budget of $60 million. That's all I have for the presentation. Any questions?
Questions on that? Okay, I do have public comment signups. Were there any other public comment at this point? For finance? Yes, Mr. Clayton.
Is this for the finance committee?
This is finance committee. Yes.
Here, this is kind of like a combo between the finance and the building grounds, okay? And possibly, I'm still thinking about what was said in regards to the building grounds, but I'm tying it into not exactly what you guys are talking about, but sign up there at the end. So currently, I'm confused, but hopefully you'll clarify it for me. Currently, the PASD does legally allow itself to undertake a financial burden of a capital improvement, and yet at that time not commit itself to financially establish a maintenance fund or maintenance program, okay, for the life of the capital improvement. Is that correct? You will fund something and you don't have to fund or establish any maintenance funding mechanism for the projected life of what you just improved.
I can answer that. So our operating budget for maintenance includes.
So does that go to the operating budget? Or the maintenance, does that fall under?
I think I can add, Mr.
So I can answer your question, Mr. Clee, but I need to be able to get through the answer before I get another question. Our operating budget includes line items for maintenance and repair of various items that need addressed during the school year. Some of them are contracted, and some of that money is set aside or included in the budget to deal with things that we know are going to be issues. The yearly maintenance costs of the items that we're noting are already or will be included in the operating budget and developed and held from there. The items that are being discussed in terms of capital requirements are, to Mr. Jones, pulling to points that if we know that we're going to need to replace something in 10 to 15 years. If we put a little bit money aside each year, we will then have the money to go do the replacement. So it's not maintenance on that, it is replacement because, as we know with anything, your car, you provide maintenance on a yearly basis, but it's going to wear out and need to be replaced at some point in time. So the yearly operating costs are always dealt with in our operating budget and something that we ensure that we have. But once again, what is being talked about on that other side from the capital project fund is then making sure that there's funds set aside to replace it when it falls apart. Previously, the district did not have a plan for that. The way they addressed it was yearly overages or unders as expenditures were used to address those on an as needed basis. What we're trying to reflect now is that we have a plan in place to address the funding of that process so that there's something that we can count on moving forward in terms of having those funds set aside to do those full replacements. But I don't want to get confused with full replacement and maintenance costs because they are not the same thing.
Here, so all your founding documents, your policies, everything that.
I think in answer to your question, yes, they could build something and never put a plan in place to replace it or maintain it. I think is the answer. You're right. And I think that's what the plan was. That's why I saw the biggest problem coming into this. I assumed that they had that plan. I assumed that when we built something, we had a funding mechanism or something that at least factored some of that cost in. And to my surprise, we didn't, which is why I proposed what I was proposing to get to there. I don't know that it's there yet, but that's what I'm trying to get is whatever we have, that's part of that they put up is this is what they see. My only comment to them, which I think I've made, they understand, I would like to see those, again, even they're just forecasting, whether they happen or not, but at least so that, to your point, Ms. Kleinfelder's point, transparency, this is what's coming down the road.
Yep. And thank you.
And also,
that is what I call a rigged game. That lack of self-discipline is a rigged game.
Yes.
Okay. And that's why I used the phrase rigged game.
No, I agree.
Tonight. Okay. Because you're not holding yourself, not you.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The board, and then there is the potential of having contempt on we the people.
Yeah. No, I understand.
You wonder why we don't show up. Okay, because people have figured out it's a rigged game. Okay.
And I hope you see from this board.
Game.
And I hope you see from this board that the willingness to try to fix, to your point, the rigged game, right?
Thank you.
Is trying the best we can do, right? And the best way to do that is what we're doing.
And just maybe a comment, because I've seen this in other organizations. I've seen this in church and library and things of that nature. Because you have a turnover in leadership of boards, and because it takes you so long as a board member to really understand what's going on, if you don't know the right questions, you might assume those programs are in place to maintain it, only to discover when it breaks down that there isn't. So I think we have to make a conscious decision.
We actually have a policy that, as Mr. Jones was talking about, setting money aside. We have a cap of 8%. How do we accomplish that?
Right.
So I believe through policy, we've tied our own hands.
Right.
And so that may be, to go back and answer your question, maybe more completely is, yeah, I think we do need to update that policy because the direction we're heading, essentially we'll get to a place where policy won't let us move any further. And it's counterproductive.
Right. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
And thank you. That concludes the Finance Committee.
Administration, yes, thank you. Pardon me. First item on the agenda is board policy first reading. Recommended to approve the first reading of board policy 913, non-school organizations / groups / individuals.
I'll take this one, Mrs. Braden. Policy before you tonight, 913, recommended updates from PSBA Policy Services. Much of it is semantics. It's changing the name to, I think, distribute to disseminate. Further defines some of the items. Basically what this is, I'll give you an example. We just had two recently. The Caring Cupboard, I believe, there was a fundraiser related to the Caring Cupboard. This policy drives that. Can we as a district distribute information for a non-school organization? Caring Cupboard benefits the community. We said yes, based on policy, we can distribute that for you and send an email out. Another one was a fundraising effort for a student battling cancer. We chose to go ahead, yes, we'll support that effort, benefiting a family in our district. So this policy is what drives that. There are districts that have policies that say no, nothing from non-school organizations will we distribute. Because when you open that door, it can get dicey. So current policy allows that. This policy continues to allow that. And it just basically is just updating some general language and definitions. Anything in bold is what you see as a general change. Prohibits dissemination of non-school related items during school. We were not going to distribute flyers to kids sitting in class or around classrooms, things of that nature.
Thank you, Dr. Kepler. Any comments, questions, or concerns surrounding this policy? No? All right. Next item on the agenda would be the girls wrestling program. Mr. Weiler, will you handle that presentation?
Yes, I am prepared.
Oh.
We're on the home stretch.
Look at you.
We're on the home stretch here.
I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Awesome. And I'll be respectful of your time and make this as brief as I can. I am here tonight to ask the board for consideration of adding a new sport effective this coming school year. That sport is girls wrestling. Admittedly, before I started my investigation, I really didn't know it was the fastest growing sport in the United States. So that's a pretty profound statement. Just this week, Cumberland Valley School District added girls wrestling. And since I put this together, we're now at 44 schools in Pennsylvania. So this is spreading quickly. PIAA has classified this as an emerging sport. They've also said we will consider sanctioning a separate championship when we get to 100 schools. So I'd say we're well on our way. The state of Pennsylvania is arguably the strongest state in the nation as it pertains to folk style wrestling. So rationale, just some key points here: equity, diversity, Title IX, identifying female students not involved in other sports, engagement, safety, connections to their school, and a sense of belonging, to name a few. Ideally, we want every student at Palmyra to feel valued. There is no threshold to start a team for a number of participants. If you have one wrestler, that constitutes a team. We do know we have one wrestler. The last week of school, I did put an announcement on, and we had 2 additional signups there. So we are currently at 3 girls who have expressed interest in joining a girls wrestling team. pretty straightforward on the logistics. Our head wrestling coach would provide oversight. They would practice same time as the boys, same facility. We have the wrestling mat. So in terms of supplies, and down here with the proposal, would be the school's responsibility to outfit our student athletes. So we're looking at new singlets. There's a range here from volunteering with coaches up till we're paying a head coach and an assistant coach. Where do our kids find meets? Again, as this sport emerges in Pennsylvania, there's going to be more opportunities for them, to find competitions, but it's possible they could match up in a dual meet, so they're traveling on the same bus with the boys. They can enter a PIAA sanctioned tournament, a National Federation High School tournament, any kind of open tournament is where they would find their competitions. So in a nutshell, that is my proposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I just have one question.
You bet.
When the interest was expressed last board meeting or the
Right.
meeting before, I believe that it was mentioned at no cost to the district. So my question is, some of these costs that are in here, can they be absorbed through the already existing booster club for the boys, or is that something that we've looked at?
Well, where we are today, Christine, absolutely. Okay. But there's that potential of what if we have 20 kids who sign up. Now things change a little bit. Where we are right now, I could channel those new singlets through the boys wrestling budget. Absolutely. We can take district vans, to events. So minimal.
No.
Yeah, minimal for now.
Good idea. What's our boys wrestling budget a year? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's usually just $1,000 to $2,000, $1,000 to $2,000 for supplies.
Supplies, but you have there's our coaching stipends that you have listed there. So
right.
you need to get to a point where you have 12.9 for full staff, your transportation costs, once you have a team, on a bus.
Right.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, they said, and I'm at least part of the boosters on the other, or at least in the fall, not hot, but the boosters said they're more than willing to not fund initially the whatever. To Mr. Clee's point though, right? So that everybody understands, right? This will bring more cost eventually, right? Because the hope is you fund a full team, right? Going into that with eyes wide open, understanding that. So just again, for the transparency, I think it's something, I'll tell you, for me, I think it's something we should do, right? You're basically saying no, but I just want everybody, again, for full transparency, that we should be prepared on day one, to your point, Mr. Weiler, to be prepared to fully fund it as if it was a full team on day one. Knowing we probably aren't, but be ready that, that all of a sudden that happens, which I am, yes. So.
In full support.
Yeah, of course. So I guess, do you guys need anything from us?
Do we need to move this to a motion on the regular board meeting next time?
I believe we would. Just that you're authorizing us to move forward with a new program.
Okay, so do we have support to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
David.
Garza.
Yep,
Was there
thank you.
anything else you wanted to add?
No, just thank you.
Forward to seeing what that program brings. Last item on the agenda would be public comment. Has anyone signed up for public comment this evening? I don't know.
Mr. Kleinfelder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of
Mr. Kleinfelder?
the lights are.
if you're interested in girls wrestling, has the board considered funding the robotics team at all?
I thought about that honestly, when they were talking about last week, or not last week, but that they're looking for a space. That would be something I would be interested in, right? I don't know that it's a PIAA sanction, but maybe Dr. Kevin, if you guys can find out, like, what is our, I don't want to say requirements, but to your point, if we help fund one club, then are we in all, right?
What do you give the clubs? You obviously give other support to teams.
To what? I'm sorry?
The teams. The girls wrestling, the swimming.
But those are PIAA sanctioned, not clubs.
I would say,
yeah,
other clubs. And again, I'd have to look at this to verify my answer, but I don't think we have any costs associated with clubs. National Honor Society, Student Council, those.
Well, other than
those
like building
operate on their own,
facilities.
other than a stipend to an advisor. The club that's closest to what the robotics program would probably be ice hockey. They're school, but they're not. That's the equation. We don't give any money there.
Is there a drama club?
If there's a club portion to it, I mean, there's the musical, which is an extracurricular program here that's funded, but it's not a club. What I've learned, the robotics program, we have as a district provided a rider on our insurance to cover them for what location they're at.
Okay, so we are.
So we do,
covering
there are
some
some
of
costs there. I believe it to be minimal and fully support that. I would stand behind what our kids are doing with robotics is something that is tremendous and it would be something that would be worth pursuing.
Do we have a robotics class?
We have classes in robotics and engineering, yes, but this is operated totally separately. The advisors are outside the school setting. In order to compete, I believe they need a school-sanctioned advisor. So one of our tech ed teachers serves in that capacity. His involvement, I'm not exactly sure how much time, but it's not near what the outside advisors are. I will tell you that.
And he receives no stipend for that?
No. We do, we did meet, I did meet with another entity with the two lead advisors or coaches of the robotics team. We believe we have a new facility for them. They're working out those details, one of which was us confirming that insurance rider, and I'm waiting for the facility owner to let us know what their needs would be for that insurance, so we can verify what that would be and take care of that for them.
So what's the difference between an extracurricular school-funded activity and a club?
It is a great question. Are there schools that fund clubs more than we do? Yes. There are schools that in their teachers' collective bargaining agreement pay advisors to all of their clubs. Our staff has always done that free. In fact, in the most recent collective bargaining agreement, there was one addition. We have a small stipend for our mini-thon advisor now that was new. All other clubs operate totally on their own, free to the district.
Is there one time was a middle school chess club?
Very well might still be in operation, but it's
that-
basically a teacher willing to stay after school and have kids play chess.
Okay.
Forge, our guidance counselor at Forge did that this year for Forge.
Okay. I guess in answer to your question, Mr. Kleinfelter, I'd be willing to look at that, but I can tell you pretty much where next year's budget discussion would have to go. I'm willing to take that on if that's what it needs to be. And again, please, everybody that I'm not saying I'm looking to try to, but to your point, yeah. I mean,
clarify the case at least for some things, PIAA recognition of something.
Yeah, I think that's the basis that we do. But to your point, I mean, I think in future facilities or whatever we can do that may help offset some of the costs for the robotics team in buildings or something, if we can carve out a multi-use space for them or whatever, you know.
It is, what's interesting, it is and I didn't know this until more recently, it's a multi-school team. They're not all Palmyra students.
Yes.
A large majority are, 90% at least. But there's like this team that just competed.
Yeah,
in
Hershey
World
said that.
had some Hershey High School students involved on the team as well. There's been some homeschoolers in the past, and Northern Lebanon students in the past. So, but phenomenal program. With those kids, I had Dr. Spagnolo and I went to their banquet, and just impressive.
Thank you, Dr. Kepler. Was there any other public comments? That would join the meeting of the open session of staffing administration, and then we'll be moving into executive committee and staffing administration to discuss.
Yeah, the board will move into executive session, we'll review some staffing positions, HR, and we have some personnel. So, thank you all for attending.